Chapter 3096. Li Xiaoyao from his previous life had awakened. Let's not talk about this anymore. You, on the other hand, aren't you cultivating the Een Maiden Divine technique? You need to absorb the realm essence of men, so Linling is beneficial to you. You should have sex with him. Thank you, Senior Sister Long. After chatting for a while, the woman smiled and looked at Linling like a snake staring at its prey. Then she waved her hand, and her boundary energy enveloped Linling and brought him to the second floor. Although this Linling is very annoying, he's also a big shot. Plus, he's handsome, so you won't lose out. Have fun. Longyang smiled enviously as she watched the woman leave. Thank you, Senior Sister. Junior Sister knows that Linling is probably the best man Junior Sister has ever played with in her entire life. The woman let out a crisp laugh that was like a silver bell, and it contained a hint of lust and evil. After you're done, don't kill him. He has something I need, Longyang said again, but the woman had already disappeared from the second floor. Hee hee, to think that a peerless genius of Tantra would end up like this. How sad. The third floor quickly quieted down, but not long after, a young man appeared with a smile on his face. He seemed to have arrived from the chaos of the universe. Clearly, he was extremely powerful. Dragon Lady, I've helped you once. You should contribute something, right? Then, the young man looked at Longyang with a burning gaze. Senior brother Dongmen, we're just doing this for our own benefits. There's no need to talk about who's helping whom. As for what I should contribute, if you want my body, then don't even think about it. For some reason, I, Longyang, can't lose my virginity. If you want to use force, then I can only fight with my life. Longyang's eyes were cold as she looked at the young man. Hearing this, the young man frowned deeply, but he felt that Longyang was not joking, so he endured it in the end. However, she still smiled and said, "You're practicing some kind of cultivation technique, so you have to maintain your virginity? I didn't expect the #1 beauty of Tantra to be a virgin. I'm envious of the man who'll get your body in the future." There will never be. Longyang shook her head. The young man shrugged and said, Linling's poison, at first, Linling's. However, the woman who cured Linling's Linling was the #1 beauty of Tantra. If you feel unreconciled, I can let Junior Sister accompany you. Thinking about it, she should be very happy. Dragon Mother said, I can. The young man licked his red. He was Lady Sister, Dongmen. Dongmen Dongmen Dongmen. Dongmen Dongmen. Dongmen Dongmen. Dongmen. Dongmen's Dongmen. Lu Dongmen Dongmen. Dongmen Iani Dongmen Dongmen Go Dongers End. Come, let's drink. I'm waiting to see how useless Linling is when he wakes up. He's so strong in this life. He must have been trash in his previous life. Junior Sister is also looking forward to it. The two of them quickly sat down, drank and chatted happily, and waited for the result. Meanwhile, on the second floor, the woman had already taken off her gown, revealing her fair skin and a body that could drive any man crazy. However, her eyes were fixed on the otherworldly man, and she could not help but lick her lips. This action was also very flirtatious. You're the only man who's worthy of me, Linling Linling. I'll make you very comfortable. Her jade-like feet stepped out, and a patch of white flowers continued to jump around. At that moment, Linling's face was flushed red. Although his eyes were closed, one could see that his breathing was extremely heavy. Obviously, the poison of desire had entered his soul. Although his subconscious mind was rejecting everything, his body betrayed him. His soul had entered thousands of reincarnations, and this reincarnation was even more terrifying than the ghost city in the rainforest's holy land. That was because these thousands of reincarnations had reached the era of the gods. At that time, who was Linling? Who was he in his previous life? Wake up, you can't fall here. Wake up. However, just as he returned to the first life, an ancient voice sounded in Linling's soul. This made him sober up a little. Next, he skipped the first life, lingered in the second life, and turned into a mortal. Then, the third life, the fourth life, and the 100 reincarnations. The hidden dazzling light on Linling's body gradually dimmed. It was as if he had become a mortal from his previous life. This poison is indeed as terrifying as the rumors say. No matter how powerful a genius or a saint is, after being poisoned, they will become immortal. They will no longer have the all-powerful aura. This Linling is so pitiful. He was originally at the peak of the spirit state, but he still fell. Sensing the changes in Lin Ling's body, the woman did not do anything for the time being. Instead, she watched curiously. Finally, after seeing the mortal light on Lin Ling's body become stronger and stronger, she quietly climbed onto the bed and covered herself with a blanket with a smile. At this moment, Lin Ling had reincarnated for thousands of times, and the saint light on his body became dimmer and dimmer. One had to know that the birth of a powerhouse also required the recognition of the universe's chaos. This power of recognition was invisible, just like the fate of the Son of Heaven. When you have the fate of becoming an emperor, then even if you are a peasant, fate will arrange for you to become an emperor. On the contrary, if you have the fate of a mortal, then even if you were born in a noble family, you will inevitably end up as a mortal in the future. In the universe's chaos, there is a mysterious destiny. This was also the reason why warriors cultivated, because they wanted to defy the heavens and change their fate. However, Lin Ling's previous life was not as dazzling as this life, but there was a life where his name shook the 9 states. And that was the ghost genius Li Xiaoyao. Unknowingly, Lin Ling came to Li Xiaoyao's life. Suddenly, his body began to emit a powerful aura, as if a saint had descended. That destiny, that fortune, was even more terrifying than Lin Ling's in this life. I am Lin Ling, killed by Longyang. Lin Ling's hazy soul gradually began to wake up. His soul was roaring, causing his body to become even hotter. The spiritual energy hidden in his dantian was rolling at this moment. Rumble! Lin Ling's cultivation realm had completely stepped into the 8th level of the martial immortal realm, and the other 3 dantians had also smoothly stepped into the 8th level when he was on the verge of death. What? The woman sleeping next to Lin Ling exclaimed at this moment. Normally, after Lin Ling was poisoned by the divine poison, he should have turned into a mortal. Even if his cultivation was still strong, it would definitely be difficult for him to control it. Then, she would use the sexual intercourse technique to steal Lin Ling's cultivation. However, Lin Ling had broken through. Poisoned, then broken through? Thinking of this, the woman's body trembled. She turned her head and looked at the handsome young man beside her with her beautiful eyes. The young man's face was as cold as a knife, and his breathing was as heavy as a cow's. However, his calm appearance made the woman feel a little terrified. Could it be that I'm imagining things? The woman muttered to herself. However, at this moment, Lin Ling's slender eyelashes moved slightly, and his eyes opened. A cold gaze, as if from the depths of hell, looked indifferently at the woman beside him. Chapter 3097. I am Li Xiaoyao. You, who are you? The woman's voice was trembling because she realized that the young man beside her was different. He looked like Lin Ling, but he didn't. Instead, he looked like the ruler of 9 prefectures. Could it be that Lin Ling was an extremely terrifying existence in his previous life? I am Li Xiaoyao. Lin Ling spat out these words coldly and stood up. Spare me, spare me. The woman hurriedly knelt down. Her entire body was white, and she was trembling. She felt that the poison had awakened a death god. I never thought that I would be able to see this world again. However, Lin Ling didn't care about the woman. He opened his arms as if he was hugging the sky. At this moment, he looked more like Li Xiaoyao. He was naked. His muscles weren't burly, but they were as exquisite as gems. His long hair cascaded down casually. How was this a young man? He was more like a lazy god emperor who had just woken up. However, Li Xiaoyao is Li Xiaoyao. Lin Ling is Lin Ling. I will return him to you in this life. The man said coldly. His tone was domineering. It was the aura of stepping on the geniuses of 9 prefectures. His gaze moved quietly and landed on the beauty beside him. He said disdainfully, You are worthy of me? I am sorry. Lin Ling, you can have anything you want. Please spare my life. The woman kowtowed on the bed. The current Lin Ling was even more terrifying than the previous Lin Ling. I want your life. Lin Ling stretched out his hand and patted the woman's head. The latter wanted to say something, but she died in the end. Perhaps before she died, she never thought that she would be able to have sex with Lin Ling. However, this step seemed close, but it was as far as the end of the world. Lin Ling glanced around and saw his clothes and 2 swords. His heart skipped a beat. Instantly, all his clothes floated over, and the 2 swords hung lightly on his back. Longyang, I've told you not to think too highly of yourself. He stepped out and walked towards the 3rd floor. At this moment, on the third floor, Longyang and the others were still drinking, quietly waiting for Lin Ling's miserable state. However, they were chatting and laughing at the beginning, but when they talked about everything about Lin Ling, their faces became serious. This Lin Ling is from the Azure State. Logically speaking, he shouldn't be so powerful. He has dominated the spirit state in such a short period of time. I couldn't believe it. Even now, I still can't believe it. That's right. I've seen countless geniuses, but this is the first time I've seen someone like Lin Ling. That's why I've always been curious as to why he has such power. Longyang, I reckon that he has a true backer, a powerful cultivator from above the spirit state. With the support of that powerful cultivator, he will naturally be able to do the impossible. You have a point. The two of them looked at each other. They both believed that Lin Ling had the support of a powerful cultivator. Humph, he's only relying on his backer's background. If we're comparing individuals, he can't compare to me at all. Dong Men Hong drank a mouthful of wine and consoled himself. Moreover, this consolation made him smile. Come, let's drink and wait. When Lin Ling appears again, he will become an ant-like existence like he was in his first life. Longyang also smiled gently and clinked her wine glass with Dong Men Hong's. Smack. However, at this moment, the sound of footsteps could be heard. Then, a slender figure lifted the curtain and appeared before their eyes. This made Longyang and Dong Men Hong stop drinking. That's right. Give me a glass, the person said calmly. His expression was calm, and no one knew what he was thinking. At this moment, Dong Men Hong and the others frowned. They did not know if the Lin Ling in front of them was still the Lin Ling in his first life. Sure, but I want to ask why you want to drink. Dong Men Hong fiddled with the wine glass in his hand and suddenly laughed. Although Lin Ling had suddenly appeared, he believed that the current Lin Ling should be in his first or second life. Anyway, he was definitely an ordinary person and was definitely not the Lin Ling of the past. After drinking, I'll kill you. However, Lin Ling's next sentence stunned Dong Men Hong and Longyang, and their hearts trembled. Kill them? Could it be that Lin Ling had returned? How could this be? That kind of divine poison was not something that ordinary people could detoxify. Are you Lin Ling or someone else? Longyang immediately acted as if she was facing a formidable enemy. I'm Lin Ling's previous life, Li Xiaoyao. Li Xiaoyao said. Lin Ling moved and sat down in front of Longyang and the others. Then, he poured himself a glass of wine and drank. Previous life? Li Xiaoyao asked. Could it be that Lin Ling was also an expert in his previous life, and was even stronger than the current Lin Ling? Longyang and Dong Men Hong were shocked. They felt as if they had done something wrong, because they had awakened an existence that was even more terrifying than Lin Ling. Subconsciously, they looked at Lin Ling, but found that Lin Ling's eyes were half closed and he was calmly tasting the wine. It was as if he was not worried even if the sky collapsed. Lin Ling, you're a genius of Tantric Buddhism. But do you want to know what I think about this? Do I believe you? Do I believe you? Longyang frowned and said lightly. So what if I believe you? So what if I believe you? Lin Ling smelled the wine in the glass and said to himself, I'm telling you I don't believe you. I think that you didn't rely on yourself to become a genius. Longyang said through gritted teeth. Perhaps this was her opinion of Lin Ling. All this time, not only had she been jealous of Lin Ling, but she had also been disdainful of Lin Ling. She felt that Lin Ling was only so dazzling because he was favored by Xing Shiyun. However, she was rational. She knew that there was no such thing as reaching the heavens in a single step on the path of martial arts. Lin Ling could only be said to be lucky. Speaking of this, Dong Men Hong was even more dissatisfied. He was the second most talented genius of Tantric Buddhism, but he had lost to Lin Ling. Most importantly, he had never heard of Lin Ling's name in the beginning. Therefore, how could he be convinced? Lin Ling, what else do you have other than luck? Your talent is not as good as senior brother Dongman's. Your cultivation time is not as long as his, and you don't have the arrogance that a martial artist should have. It's as if you don't care about anything in the spirit state. You lack the focus that a genius should have. You don't deserve to be called a genius. Lin Ling, if you didn't use sorcery, you wouldn't be my opponent at all with your own strength. How can you call yourself a genius? Dong Men Hong and Long Xiaoyao's voices became hysterical. Perhaps they had both been humiliated by Lin Ling before. One had been rejected in public, while the other had been defeated twice in public. They were not ordinary people, so how could they swallow this? Most importantly, Lin Ling had appeared out of nowhere and had no previous achievements. Seeing a person they didn't know suddenly standing above their heads and humiliating them, it was easy to imagine the knot in their hearts that they suppressed in their hearts. However, Lin Ling was still drinking. Compared to their agitated expressions, he seemed very calm. He clearly did not want to explain anything. In terms of experience, talent, and achievements, Li Xiaoyao was indeed not famous in the spirit state. It was difficult for people to obey him. Chapter 3098. Why? Are you done? Stop. Finally, Lin Ling put down his cup and looked at Long Yang calmly. Long Yang, I told you that after drinking that cup of wine, you and I are strangers. I also told myself that I hope you don't think you're smart. Unfortunately, you did. Stop. He looked at Dongfang Hong. I defeated you twice in a row. You don't even know what kind of existence I am, and you dare to attack me for the third time. I said that after the third time, I will make your head roll on the ground like a gourd. Stop. I know that you're not willing to accept this, but I can tell you that my existence is something that you'll never be able to imagine. Stop. Since you're not convinced, then I, Lin Ling, will tell you what I rely on. Stop. Lin Ling stood up. The dragon god roared, and the true inheritance dark sword floated out. Calamity-destroying sun bow. Stop. The terrifying dragon bone bow appeared, and Lin Ling gently pulled it back. At this moment, it was as if he could kill the 9 states with an arrow. The scariest thing was that the true inheritance dark sword turned into an arrow and was held in Lin Ling's hand. The sword was pointed at Dongmen Hong. The entire mountain peak instantly split open, and the ants collapsed. The plains of the spirit state also continued to tremble. This change made Longyang and Dongfang Hong's expressions change drastically, especially Dongmen Hong. He looked as if he was facing a great enemy. Last time, you said that I defeated you with my demonic arts. This time, I'll show you my true strength. Stop. Dongmen Hong, I'll give you 3 breaths time to prepare. After 3 breaths, I, Lin Ling, will take your head. Stop. His soft voice drifted out, but it carried a domineering aura. Come on, don't use your demonic arts. I think you, Lin Ling, are only a... Stop. At this point, Dongmen Hong didn't hide his strength anymore. He unleashed his full strength, and a huge sacred mountain appeared in the sky. An ancient pagoda appeared, and his true god martial spirit exploded. Long Yang was extremely nervous, but she believed that Lin Ling, who didn't use his demonic arts, was no match for Dongmen Hong. 3 breaths time. At the same time, Lin Ling let out a cold shout and drew his sword like a dragon god. Roar! On the plains of the spirit state, there were waves even though there was no wind. A dragon was roaring in the sky. Rumble! Dongmen Hong's talent was pierced through by the arrow. The 5th grade supreme artifact pagoda in the sky broke through the void. Even the true god martial spirit was unable to block it. Whoosh! The sword turned around and pierced through Dongmen Hong's head like a divine arrow or a Buddha's bow. One shot kill. Gulyalu! Dongmen Hong's head rolled on the ground. His eyes showed that he had died with a grievance. He was the 2nd most powerful genius in Tantric Buddhism, yet he was killed by a single shot. This was an outcome that he never expected. Perhaps before he died, he only knew that when Lin Ling attacked for the 3rd time, his head would roll on the ground like a gourd. After killing Dongmen Hong with ease, Lin Ling waved his right hand and the dragon bow disappeared. He placed his hands behind his back and looked at Long Yang calmly. Now you should know that the reason why I was valued by Tantric Buddhism was not because of my relationship with my master, but because I have the potential to rule the 9 prefectures, as well as the speed of my growth that surpasses all the other monstrous geniuses. When these words reached Long Yang's ears, her heart collapsed. In the past, when Lin Ling faced Dongmen Hong, he could only rely on his demonic arts. But today, when Lin Ling faced Dongmen Hong, he only needed 1 arrow. The entire process didn't even take 3 months. This increase in cultivation level, this increase in strength, was truly too terrifying. This made Long Yang feel as though she had seen a god. Following that, endless regret filled her heart. She knew what kind of existence she had provoked. I thought I was clever. Long Yang muttered to herself. If she had a choice, She might have used that cup of apology wine to sever ties with Lin Ling forever. Unfortunately, she did think she was clever. Lin Ling walked over expressionlessly. You should know that if you harm me, Lin Ling, there will only be one outcome. You can resist now, but I don't think it will be of much use. This sentence sounded like he was talking to a friend, but it was mixed with indifference. Plop. Long Yang was so frightened that she fell to the ground, her beautiful face turning pale. Although Lin Ling's words were arrogant, they also represented the truth. She couldn't resist Lin Ling. Lin Ling had already arrived in front of Long Yang. The tyrannical Song sword appeared in his hand. His eyes showed no mercy as he wanted to kill her. But at this moment, desire surged into his mind, causing his expression to change. Get lost! I, Li Xiaoyao, have dominated the 9 prefectures and have been labeled as a monstrous genius. I can shock the heavens and the earth and make the gods cry. You want to control me with just a little poison. Sensing the terrifying desire, Lin Ling shouted angrily. However, his eyes gradually turned red as he stared at Long Yang maliciously. Long Yang's delicate body trembled as she subconsciously clasped her legs together. Long Yang, get lost! Lin Ling shouted angrily again. He was using his strong willpower to resist the desire of the god. However, this resistance was also gradually weakening. What made Lin Ling angry was that Long Yang was scared silly and didn't leave. Wasn't she forcing Lin Ling to leave? No, don't. Long Yang's eyes were already wet. She knew what was going to happen next. This was definitely the effect of the poison. She began to cry like a little girl. However, Lin Ling had already rushed over. What followed was a series of cries and moans. Lin Ling, don't. Long Yang's voice also gradually weakened. I will haunt you even if I become a ghost. She cultivated a taboo technique and had to maintain her virginity. However, today, all her previous efforts had gone to waste. Ultimate desolate body? You are cultivating the ultimate desolate body? Is this your secret? At this moment, Lin Ling said as he looked at the powerless beauty beneath him after a round of passion. Lin Ling, I won't let you off. Long Yang's body was extremely weak, but her voice was filled with hatred. This is all because you thought you were smart. Upon hearing this, Lin Ling sneered. If not for Long Yang harming him, Long Yang wouldn't have ended up in such a state. Furthermore, Lin Ling had resisted his desire with his willpower. At that time, Long Yang should have left immediately. If she stayed, and with the body of the #1 beauty of Tantric Buddhism, how could Lin Ling, who was overwhelmed by desire, resist? Since you won't let me off, I'll eliminate you by the roots. Lin Ling's eyes turned even colder. His principle was to treat others the way they treated him. He would not show mercy just because the other party was a beauty. His palm crazily grabbed Long Yang's abdomen, causing Long Yang to let out a painful cry. In her smooth abdomen, a jade-white bone was pulled out by Lin Ling. My ultimate desolate body! Long Yang cried out in pain, as if she had encountered the most terrifying ordeal in her life. Furthermore, her painful voice sounded like she was about to cry. However, Lin Ling ignored her. When the jade-white bone was pulled out, a massive force exploded, sending Lin Ling flying. Lin Ling, the next time we meet, I'll definitely kill you. Long Yang's hair was disheveled. Using the explosive force, she ran into the distance. However, that voice was filled with hatred. It made one tremble in fear. And this was clearly a warrior's blood oath. Trying to escape? Lin Ling knew that if he allowed Long Yang to escape, there would be no end of trouble. Therefore, he immediately chased after her. Chapter 3099. Azure Dragon Hall Saint. Following that, a golden light shone in the sky, and a tall and sturdy old man with long golden hair appeared in the sky. He looked down at Lin Ling like a god. What was shocking was that the lower half of this old man's body was a huge snake tail, and his entire body was covered in golden scales. Scram! Lin Ling also saw that the person's cultivation was at the sage realm, and the sage light was extremely rich. But now, he couldn't care less because Long Yang was running further and further away. And that was indeed the case. Long Yang's clothes were disheveled and her delicate little face was filled with resentment. She was quickly disappearing into the sky. Today, the reason she had invited Lin Ling here was because of Lin Ling's dragon bones. Those dragon bones could rapidly increase her talent. Of course, she was a rational person. She had thought about this for a long time before she made this decision. In the end, she decided that if Lin Ling died, Xing Xiaoyun might be furious. However, as long as she unleashed her outstanding potential, Xing Xiaoyun would not dare to do anything to her. However, no matter how much she thought about it, she would never have thought that Lin Ling's past life was so terrifying. Not only did he cure her poison, he even broke through his realm in a short period of time. Who are you? How dare you speak to a saint like this? Saint, allow me to kill him and restore peace to the spirit province. At this moment, the clouds in the sky were torn apart, and a young man dressed like a child appeared, glaring angrily at Lin Ling. As far as he was concerned, the young man before him had simply rebelled because he actually dared to speak to a saint of the Azure Dragon Hall in such a tone. Lin Ling kept staring into the distance. Finally, when he saw that Longyang had completely disappeared, his expression became even colder. I am Lin Ling, the person who will kill you. The tyrannical song sword appeared in his hand. Lin Ling looked at the boy in the sky and slashed out. 30% of the demon sword step, in addition to the fusion of the 4 great dantians, attacked crazily. Previously, Lin Ling had been able to kill Dongmen Hong with the help of the calamity-destroying Sun Bao, because his cultivation had improved to the 8th layer martial immortal realm. Therefore, the power of this sword strike was even sharper than before. What arrogance! The boy didn't expect Lin Ling to be so arrogant, daring to kill him in front of a saint. He also used his full strength. Since he was able to become a servant of the Azure Dragon Hall, his strength was naturally not to be underestimated. He was a first-layer half-saint. Unfortunately, this strength was simply not enough to look at Lin Ling. Huazi, be careful. The old man didn't care at first, but his expression suddenly changed because he felt that sword strike was extremely sharp. Lin Ling? You're Lin Ling from Tantra. Furthermore, he also realized what was going on. Lin Ling of Tantra? When the boy heard the old man's words, he immediately sobered up. Lin Ling of Tantric Buddhism had appeared out of nowhere. He could be said to be a big shot in the spirit state. He was the most famous person in the spirit state. However, they didn't expect that this big shot was actually so young. Whoosh! With a slash of the sword, the boy's head fell off. He didn't leave behind any words as his soul scattered. You killed him. The old man was stunned in the sky. Then he flew into a rage. I have no enmity with you. Why did you stop me? Don't you know that letting Longyang go is equivalent to killing me? Hearing this, Lin Ling gave tit for tat. You killed Dongmen Hong. He was an important person in the spirit state, so how can I let you go? Furthermore, you killed the boy in front of me. Do you think that the Azure Dragon Hall doesn't exist? The old man's snake tail started to sway, mixed with anger. As a member of the Azure Dragon Hall, they usually didn't care about the matters of the spirit state unless it was related to the Emperor's mandate. Currently, there were a few people who were most qualified to receive the Emperor's mandate, and one of them was Dongmen Hong. Furthermore, Longyang was also one of them. Others didn't know that Longyang was cultivating a forbidden technique, but the Azure Dragon Hall knew. Furthermore, they had been quietly waiting for Longyang's technique to reach the ultimate desolate body. The ultimate desolate body was a talent that only appeared in the era of the gods. The word ultimate represented everything. In the entire 9 provinces, there were only a handful of people who had such talent. Therefore, Longyang had always been valued by the Azure Dragon Hall. It was just that ordinary people didn't know. Why didn't you speak up when they tried to harm me? However, Lin Ling raised his head fearlessly. At this moment, he looked like Lin Ling, but more likely Xiao Yao. His gaze was full of disdain as he looked at the old man from the Azure Dragon Hall. And this kind of aura undoubtedly stunned the old man. This was because the young man in front of him had long hair fluttering in the wind. His eyes were staring at him. Not only did he not show any respect or fear, but he looked at him as if he was looking at an ant. Does he know what kind of existence he is facing? The old man was somewhat tongue-tied. In the countless years in the spirit state, he hadn't met such a person in a long time. This was because even the giants of the Mi and Xian sects didn't dare to face him like this. Impudent. Even if you are a genius of the spirit state, if you can't obtain the recognition of the Azure Dragon Hall, you are just a fly. Sigh. But soon the old man shook his head. His eyebrows twitched, and a huge palm mixed with the aura of a saint grabbed at Lin Ling. However, at this moment, Exclamations suddenly sounded. Senior Azure, wait. How dare you, old man? Fuck you. At first, the voices were somewhat polite, but the voices that followed were not polite at all. They directly cursed. Then, 5 meteors shot over from afar, cutting through the sky of the spirit state. Countless warriors in the spirit state looked at the sky in admiration. They sensed that those 5 people were definitely the strongest emperors in the spirit state. Bang! At the same time, a fist quickly arrived, releasing the aura of a saint. It collided with the old man's palm, causing the latter's expression to change. Master Tantra? He never expected that killing a genius of the Tantra would attract the master of the Tantra. Moreover, the latter did not hesitate to attack him. One had to know that in terms of status, the Azure Dragon Hall was more sacred than the Tantra. It was just that they didn't care about the matters of the spirit state. Sorry. After the master of the Tantra attacked, he said coldly, Are you crazy? You attacked the Azure Dragon Hall for a genius? The old man seemed to still not believe everything in front of him. But then, something that almost drove him crazy happened right before his eyes. That was because the 4 heavenly kings had also arrived, and they were not as polite as the master of the Tantra. You touched my disciple. The fist with rolling constellation clouds blasted out. Bang! The fist smashed into the old man's face, causing the clouds behind him to explode. The old man's nose crooked, and he spat out blood. He pointed at the constellation clouds as if he wanted to say something. Obviously, he did not expect the 4 heavenly kings to be even crazier than the master of the Tantra and attack him directly. You all have rebelled. The old man shouted angrily, but just as he finished speaking, the other 3 heavenly kings also attacked. Their fists and feet collided, collapsing the sky. Rumble! The battle of saints shocked the entire spirit state, causing all the warriors in the spirit state to be dumbfounded. Boom! Chapter 3100. The Era of the Mi and Xian Sects. You guys are really impulsive. Seeing this, the Tantric sect master smiled bitterly. He did not expect the 4 heavenly kings to have such a big reaction. Are you guys crazy? How dare you hit a saint? Not long after, the old man shot up from the ground and glared at the 4 heavenly kings. These 4 old monsters had joined forces to beat him up for a junior? And he was the Azure Dragon Hall's saint, the servant of God. I even dare to hit a god, let alone you. Xing Shiyun glared angrily at the old man. He did not treat him as a member of the Azure Dragon Hall at all. After he finished speaking, he rolled up his sleeves and wanted to beat him up again. However, the master of Tantra waved his hand and stopped Xing Shiyun. He looked at the old man and said, Lin Ling is the #1 genius of Tantra. Therefore, even the Azure Dragon Hall has no right to attack him. He killed Dongmen Hong and injured Longyang. Isn't that enough? The old man said with bloodshot eyes. Hearing this, Lord Tantra and the others were shocked. Evidently, they did not know about this. You have nothing to say, right? Seeing the state of the Vajrayana and the others, the old man shouted coldly. You're not qualified either. However, after being stunned for a moment, the Tantric master spoke again. This time, the old man was completely dumbfounded. Although Lin Ling was an extremely dazzling genius of the spirit state, he wasn't precious to this extent. Even if they had to sacrifice Dongmen Hong, they had to protect him. His talent is only slightly lower than Xiang Anning's. He is the #1 genius of Tantric Buddhism and the next realm monarch. Tantric Sama said again. Boom! The elder's heart thumped. The importance that Tantra placed on Lin Ling was beyond his imagination. He said in disbelief. Could it be that even your Tantra's Chong Qingzi is inferior to him? Not bad. Master Vajrayana, Xing Shiyun, and the others looked at each other and nodded. As soon as he finished speaking, the old man was completely speechless. Chong Qingzi was the #1 genius of Tantric Buddhism. He received a lot of attention and was also the most qualified junior to become the next master of Tantric Buddhism. But now, Lin Ling was more important than Chong Qingzi? For the sake of Lin Ling, Tantra did not hesitate to confront the Azure Dragon Hall. This allowed the old man to realize that he would absolutely not be able to touch Lin Ling today. I hope you're not mistaken. The old man said indifferently as he caressed his face that was hurting from the slap. Also, Xiang Anning is the true #1 prodigy of the spirit state. He will definitely be back at the Mi and Xian Sect ceremony in 3 months. At that time you will know how powerful he is. Let me remind you again. The Azure Dragon Hall believes that there should only be one divine emperor in the spirit state. The era of the Mi and Xian sects should be over. Take care. The old man left behind a sentence and turned to leave. However, this sentence caused the expressions of the Tantric Master and the others to change. The era of the Mi and Xian sects is over? This meant that in the future, only one of the two ancient factions would rule over them, and just like the other continents, there would only be one realm monarch. With the addition of the number one prodigy of the spirit state, Xiang Anning, they already knew that the Tsong Dragon Hall was planning on making Xianzong the number one power. If it was in the past, the Tantric Master would definitely object. However, Xiang Anning's appearance made them realize that the Tsong Dragon Hall was trying to make Xiang Anning the realm monarch. They wanted to object, but they lacked the confidence to do so. Let's go back. The Tantric Master's eyes flashed as he looked at Lin Ling. Lin Ling nodded and left. Everyone left at once. Lin Ling looked at Xing Shiyun curiously and asked, "Who is Xiang Anning?" "This young man has been famous for a long time. He is the number one prodigy of the spirit state. Now, he is not in the spirit state but is wandering around the 9 continents. I heard that he is doing very well in the 9 continents and has obtained countless honors. We know of many of them, such as the 12 kills of the Flying Dragon Organization and the Purple Gold Guest of the 9 continents Fuxing Manor. However, this young man's goal is not the spirit state, so he is not interested in the position of realm monarch. Of course that was in the past," Xing Shiyun explained. From her words, Lin Ling could tell that Xing Shiyun valued this young man greatly. Most importantly, the Tsong Dragon Hall removed one of the 2 sects for Xiang Anning. This is not good for the Tantric Master. Yes, this decision is also out of our expectations. After all, no matter how strong Xiang Anning is, he will only be one of the realm monarchs in the future. He will only be able to control half of the world in the spirit state. But now, with this decision, many things have changed. Maybe, this is the reason why Xiang Anning returned. Without the position of realm monarch, he doesn't want to stay in the spirit state. The other 3 heavenly kings said one after another. The Azure Dragon Hall clearly wants to announce this decision through the grand ceremony of the 2 sections. At that time, although our Tantric sect will not be disintegrated, we will definitely not be as awe-inspiring as before. Lord Tantric sect also spoke. There was a hint of worry between his brows. So it's just such a small matter. If I trample on Xiang Anning during the ceremony of the 2 sects, I think they would be too embarrassed to make this decision. At this time, Lin Ling smiled and his words made the Tantric Master and the others' pupils dilated. "Disciple, that is Xiang Anning, the number one genius in the history of the spirit state," Xing Shiyun exclaimed. Lin Ling has been in the spirit state for less than 10 years and he already has the confidence to challenge the number one genius of the spirit state? Without the title of the number one genius, he will not be able to move me, Lin Ling. However, Lin Ling smiled, and his words were bold. Xiang Anning might be amazing, but compared to Li Xiaoyao, who had swept away all the geniuses in the 9 regions, he was just an ant. Furthermore, Lin Ling did not want to stay in the spirit state for too long. Thus, he wanted to use Xiang Anning as a test. If he could defeat him, Lin Ling would also be able to leave the spirit state. "All right, teacher, I killed Dongmen Hong and crippled Longyang." Then, Lin Ling told them what happened. Of course, Lin Ling also hid the matter of Li Xiaoyao and the dragon bone he took from Longyang. Dongmen Hong and Longyang are so vicious. Hearing this, Xing Shiyun and the others' faces turned cold. She is really courting death. The Tantric Master also shouted coldly. Lin Ling was magnanimous and let Dongmen Hong and Longyang go. However, they provoked Lin Ling and almost killed Lin Ling. What was the point of them not dying? Fortunately, my disciple is lucky and has escaped this disaster. Sigh. Xing Shiyun then let out a sigh. She also understood why Lin Ling provoked the Azure Dragon Hall's saint. That saint was indeed meddling in other people's business. Anyone would be unhappy. However, Longyang is not simple. She escaped this time. I'm afraid there will be a lot of trouble in the future. Sigh. Thinking of Longyang's blood oath, Lin Ling said with a cold gaze. She should have escaped from the spirit state. Perhaps she will be a nobody in the future. Lin Ling, don't worry. All right. Chapter 3101. Illuminate the Spirit Province. Everyone quickly returned to the valley. The tantric master looked at Lin Ling calmly and suddenly said, "Give all the cultivation resources of the tantric sect to Lin Ling. He must increase his strength again during this period of time. All cultivation resources. TSK, this is a big deal. And there are only 3 months left until the ceremony of the Mi and Xian sections. That's too short." Hearing those words, the expressions of the various heavenly kings instantly changed. Tantric Buddhism was a giant in the spirit state. When all the cultivation resources were gathered together, the amount would definitely be terrifying. It could forcefully turn a normal person into a saint. The 4 heavenly kings even suspected that Lin Ling wouldn't be able to swallow all these cultivation resources, because they only had 3 months. Lin Ling, do your best. Refine as many cultivation resources as you can. 3 months later, it will be the end of Tantric Buddhism. So, fight with our backs against the wall. The Tantric Sama was still staring at Lin Ling, betting everything on Lin Ling. This was because if Xiang Anning was allowed to rise, then there would be no place for Tantric Buddhism in the spirit state. What about Chong Qingzi? Xing Shiyun was extremely touched, but she was also worried. He couldn't just abandon Chong Qingzi and focus on nurturing Lin Ling. Moreover, Chong Qingzi was a disciple of the Tantric sect. Don't worry, he will understand. The Lord of Tantric Buddhism looked into the distance and said faintly. His words caused Lin Ling's eyes to flash. As Chong Qingzi's master, I know him the best. He's the #1 genius of Tantric Buddhism, but he's still a bit weaker than Xiang Anning. As for Lin Ling, he's growing too fast. He hasn't even been in the spirit province for 10 years. When he first arrived, he defeated the geniuses of the 10 great sects. In a short period of time, he defeated another genius of Tantric Buddhism. After disappearing for a while, he returned and defeated the #2 genius of Tantric Buddhism, Dongmen Hong. The Tantric Sama was still looking into the distance, but his voice was like a bell, shaking the entire valley. He seemed to be talking to himself, but in truth, he was telling the entire Tantric sect that their sect was at the brink of destruction. And he, the Tantric sect lord, was betting everything on Lin Ling. He believed in Lin Ling. All right, we agree. Hearing those words, the 4 heavenly kings puffed out their chests. The Tantric master smiled and looked at Lin Ling. Lin Ling, are you able to use up all the cultivation resources given to you by the Tantric sect in 3 months? If Lin Ling could consume all of it, it would mean that Lin Ling's strength would increase greatly. However, a martial artist's cultivation was not something that could be improved just by having endless resources. The most crucial factor was time. Instantly, Xing Shiyun and the others turned to look at Lin Ling. I think it's too little. Lin Ling's lips curled into a smile as he replied calmly. As soon as he said that, the Tantric sect lord was stunned, then laughed heartily. He thought that Lin Ling would say that he would do his best, or that he would definitely be able to consume all of it. However, he did not expect Lin Ling to think that it was too little. Of course, he knew that Lin Ling's words were words of fighting spirit. It was impossible for him to think that it was too little. All right then, we look forward to you stepping into the sage state in 3 months. The Tantric sect lord nodded heavily. He did not know that Lin Ling was indeed thinking that it was too little. That was because he had 4 danshans, which meant that 4 people were cultivating. How could the cultivation resources he needed be little? My dear disciple, do your best. The Tantric sect is also your home. We have high hopes for you. Xing Shiyun looked at Lin Ling seriously. He did not expect that the young man whom he met at the 8 Gods' heavenly palace would be the hope of the entire Tantric sect. Moreover, he believed in Lin Ling. That was because when Lin Ling was at the 8 Gods' heavenly palace, he could have taken away the dragon scale, but Lin Ling did not. That meant that Lin Ling was a man of his words. This is indeed another home of mine, Lin Ling. Hearing Xing Shiyun's words, Lin Ling looked at the group of elders and felt touched. After he came to the spirit state, Xing Shiyun and the others treated him like their own son and did not ask for anything in return. Now that they needed Lin Ling, he, Lin Ling, would definitely shine with all of his brilliance. I'm in green state, illuminating green state. I'm in spirit state, illuminating spirit state. Lin Ling looked at the entire valley. He knew that everyone in the Tantric sect was listening to their conversation. Illuminating spirit state. As soon as he said that, everyone in the Tantric sect felt a surge of excitement. Brother Ling. In the corner of the valley, Yu Yu and the others laughed. They were proud of Lin Ling. Illuminating spirit state? Meng Lu and Sakura looked at each other, and a heroic smile hung on their lips. It's a matter of life and death for the tantric sect. Senior brother Lin is going to challenge the #1 genius of the spirit state, senior brother Xiang. Because of senior brother Xiang's existence, although the tantric sect seems to be on par with the prominent sect, we're actually one level lower. If Lin Ling can surpass senior brother Xiang, the tantric sect will be able to hold our heads high. After 1,000 years, the tantric sect finally has someone who can challenge senior brother Xiang. In every corner of the tantric sect, the elders were talking excitedly. Although they were currently more powerful than Xiang Anning, they had reached their limits and could not break through anymore. If there were no accidents, Xiang Anning would definitely surpass them in the future. Therefore, they were looking forward to Lin Ling illuminating the spirit state. Lin Ling, huh? In another corner of the valley, a young man looked into the distance with his hands behind his back. He was the #1 genius of the tantric sect, Chong Qingzi. Right now, all of the tantric sect's cultivation resources were piled up on Lin Ling. Even his was the same. It was impossible for him not to have any thoughts about it. However, he did not dare to disobey the tantric sect's orders. He only hoped that Lin Ling would not disappoint him. I'll see Xiang Anning in 3 months. I hope you won't underestimate him. In the following days, everyone began to wait for the grand ceremony of the tantric sect and the prominent sect. Moreover, the news spread like the wind, letting the entire spirit state know that the era of the tantric sect and the prominent sect was over. The spirit state was going to change. Everyone was wondering which of the tantric sect and the prominent sect would remain. Of course, many people had high hopes for Xiang Anning. After all, the latter had been the #1 genius of the spirit state for thousands of years. Although Lin Ling appeared out of nowhere, his foundation was definitely much weaker. Looks like the tantric sect is also struggling before death. In the prominent sect, the elites also knew about the tantric sect's big move. Is the tantric sect's master stupid? Instead of placing his hopes on his own disciple, he believes in a rising star. Does he think that 3 months can change anything? Maybe it's just a broken jar. Right, that guy called Lin Ling. What's his cultivation level? I heard that he's a martial celestial. Haha, he's not even a half-sage. How dare he compete with Xiang Anning? Looks like it's time for the prominent sect to rise. After the prominent sect learned about this, they clearly thought that victory was in their hands. Even the Azure Dragon Hall thought so. Chapter 3102. Cultivate Together. In my opinion, we should cancel the era of the secret and manifestation sects. The tantric sect has been passed down for countless years. Sigh, but in the end, they made such a choice. The Azure Dragon Hall saints sighed. Of course, there were also those who were gloating. While the entire spirit state was paying attention, Lin Ling and the rest had also entered seclusion to cultivate. Big brother, the tantric sect has already given me all the cultivation resources. Take whatever you need. Lin Ling looked at Sakura and Meng Lu and said. They were currently under the ancient tree of Mount Yu. Only they could enter this place. This showed how much importance the tantric sect placed on them. That won't do. These cultivation resources were given to you by the tantric sect. They are the hope of the tantric sect. Yeah, Lin Ling, you don't have to care about us. Sakura and the rest immediately waved their hands. To be honest, these cultivation resources are still too little. That's why I'm sharing some with you. Even if I use all of them for cultivation, it won't be of much help. Lin Ling smiled and shook his head. Could it be that you are a bottomless pit? Sakura shook his head helplessly. No wonder Lin Ling was always able to fight above his level. It turned out that the cultivation resources he used were several times more than others. Most importantly, the ancient tree of Mount Yu is more precious than many cultivation resources. According to my estimates, if you can get close to the ancient tree, the effects of your cultivation will be tens of thousands of times better than outside. Lin Ling said again. Sakura and the rest immediately nodded when they heard Lin Ling's words. Yu Yu and Shen Yuan Go were also here. Therefore, Lin Ling looked at Yu Yu and the rest and said, I happen to have an ultimate desolate body here. It's very suitable for women. Who wants it? Ultimate desolate body? Meng Lu gasped when he heard that. He came from the 9 states 10 vicious and naturally knew what kind of existence it was. It could be said that if an ultimate desolate body was born, as long as one's realm increased, no one in the same realm would be a match. Unless one was a genius like Lin Ling who had endless trump cards. Give it to Sister Yu Yu. Who are you? Do it. Yu Yu and the others glanced at each other and began to decline. Finally, Lin Ling looked at Yu Yu and said, "You don't have to decline, because I feel that this ultimate desolate body is more suitable for Yu Yu. Of course, if there's a chance in the future, I will also find a new ultimate desolate body for Ge-er. If that's the case, then we can only follow Brother Ling's wishes." Hearing this, she nodded faintly. Next, Lin Ling also began to break the natural barrier of the ancient tree of Mount Yu. This time, he had a large amount of cultivation resources. He could lay down his own barrier and break the barrier with a barrier. Even so, it was still an eye-opener for Lin Ling. He was amazed by the natural enchantment of chaos around the universe. Time quietly passed just like that. 10 days later, Lin Ling had already cracked the 3rd ring. The spiritual energy here was as dense as water, and it was the most ancient spiritual energy in the universe. This made Sakura and company overjoyed as they entered the place to cultivate. At the same time, Lin Ling also injected the clean bone he had obtained from Longyang into Yu Yu's body. And this ultimate desolate body was possessed by the dragon race's god. It was also known as the ultimate dragon god. And this was the skeleton of the dragon god of light. At the same time, Lin Ling was also shocked by the ancient power of the god. Things from the era of the gods contained the most ancient power of the universe's chaos. It was not something that the martial arts of the present could resist. This power contained the universe's origins and laws. It was the lord of all things and worlds. After the dragon bone was completely injected, Lin Ling also began to cultivate. He knew that when Yu Yu woke up, Yu Yu would definitely be reborn. There are so many cultivation resources. It actually has dragon whiskers and dragon claws. Lin Ling checked the cultivation resources and could not help but smile. Following that, he began to refine them. He had the dragon bone. If he added the dragon race's dragon god's item, then the dragon bone could be upgraded again. Moreover, there were many rare physical body cultivation items among the cultivation resources. Lin Ling also used them one by one to cultivate. This was also the most luxurious he had ever been since he started learning martial arts. Whatever he wanted, he had it. Moreover, Lin Ling sensed that the time was getting shorter and shorter. He might as well refine all the cultivation resources. This was cultivating all at once. The advantage was that if there was an external force, the domains would also completely erupt. Cultivating essence, energy, and spirit was absolutely an all-round improvement. The disadvantage was that the cultivation realm at the beginning was the same as before. Moreover, it would be difficult to familiarize oneself with one's strength. While Lin Ling allowed the cultivation resources to be refined, he was also comprehending martial arts. The first was the illusion god true inheritance. His soul force was slowly improving with the help of the cultivation resources. The ancient illusion god was also floating in his mind. In the illusory world, what was true was false, and what was false was true. In the illusory world, Lin Ling was like a god. Whatever he wanted, he had it. Time is getting shorter and shorter. Let's start cultivating the great calamity-destroying Sun Bao. After his soul force improved greatly, Lin Ling also started cultivating the 8 divine abilities of the Dragon Clan. A dragon roared and a new dragon Bao appeared. It was actually 5 meters long and majestic. Moreover, he could shoot 2 arrows at once. One of the arrows was formed by the true inheritance nether sword, greatly increasing its power. With Lin Ling's current strength, he could fight against a 4th layer half-saint. However, if he went all out, he was confident that he could defeat all 4th layer half-saint. Moreover, this was the state where he had yet to break through. If he broke through, his strength would be unimaginable. Time quietly passed. 3 months had passed. At this moment, in the Tantric sect, a large number of people had gathered in the valley. Yu Yu, Sakura, and the others were among them. Yu Yu had reached the 4th layer of the martial immortal realm, and Xian Yuangu had reached the 2nd layer of the martial immortal realm. Their improvements were extremely obvious. After all, when they were in the Asia province, they had only just stepped into the martial immortal realm. Sakura and Xian Yuangu's aura was extraordinary. They had officially stepped into the half-saint realm. Their sage light was extremely dense. Sakra's half-saint light gave off an extremely domineering feeling. It was clearly much stronger than ordinary half-saint realm experts. As for Meng Lu, he gave off a gloomy and cold feeling. Getting close to him felt like entering a grave. That's right. From their half-saint light, they are clearly stronger than ordinary half-saint realm experts. The tantric sex lords looked at Sakra and the others and secretly nodded. Ordinary initial stage half-saint realm experts would find it difficult to detect the half-saint light unless they were exceptional geniuses. They have made such great improvements. What about my disciple? Xian Shiyun suddenly said with anticipation. The eyes of the tantric sex lords flickered. Time is running out. If Lin Ling still doesn't come out, I'm afraid we will be late. Xianzong will also say that we have forfeited and tacitly admit that Xianzong is above us. The tantric sex lords looked into the distance and frowned. However, at this moment, in the valley, a slender figure slowly walked out. Blue robe, 2 swords, unforgettable. Lin Ling had come out of seclusion. At this moment, the tantric sex members became nervous. Moreover, as the young man in front of them walked, they felt as if they saw the arrival of a god. Every step he took was stepping on their hearts. The tantric sex lord smiled excitedly. Lin Ling should have greatly improved his strength. Chapter 3103. Gathering at the Plains. Lin Ling, are you still at the 8th stage of the martial arts realm? The tantric sex master was shocked and asked anxiously. For now. Lin Ling glanced at the crowd and nodded with a smile. However, his words caused the tantric sect to fall silent. Lin Ling still had not broken through after using all the resources? His progress was even slower than Sakra and the others? This made everyone feel very uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Chong Qingzi's expectant expression turned into a long sigh. It seemed like his master had made the wrong bet. Lin Ling naturally saw the looks on everyone's faces, but he didn't mind it and smiled. Because he had said temporarily before, because in the next moment, he might be able to break through the realm and arrive at a new world. The reason was that he had refined all the cultivation resources at once, causing his dantian to be in a strange state. It was as if he had accumulated enough energy for a breakthrough. The eruption of one load was definitely no small matter. Let's go. They've been waiting for us for a long time. This time we won't disappoint them. Lin Ling said calmly. Let's go. The tantric sex master nodded. Although he was a little disappointed, he had a feeling that Lin Ling was not as simple as he seemed. This was not the first time something like this had happened. Lin Ling nodded as well. Before the tantric sex master moved forward, he had already taken Yu Yu and Qianqian's hands and led the way into the sky. The people of the tantric sect were in an uproar. They did not expect Lin Ling, who was only at the 8th stage of the martial immortal realm, to be so confident. Haha! Xing Shiyun could not help but laugh and catch up to Lin Ling. The others did the same one after another. In the sky, his blue robe was fluttering. His steps were steady as he walked forward. As he walked, an invisible wind spread as if telling the spirit province that wherever he, Lin Ling, was, that place was the sky. Beside him, Yu Yu and the others smiled. Lin Ling gave them a sense of familiarity. That's right. He was Lin Ling, who ruled the Heaven Mystics Kingdom. He was also Lin Ling, who ruled the sacred land of the rainforest. He was the Lin Ling who illuminated Qingzhou. Right now, this light had quietly arrived in spirit state and illuminated the land. Brother Ling, it seems like Li Xiaoyao has returned. Xian Yuange couldn't help but smile as he looked at the imposing figure beside him. When Lin Ling had the courage to dominate everything, he would be like Li Xiaoyao, free and unfettered in the world. Yeah. Second brother gives me the feeling as if I've returned to the rainforest's sacred land. Sakra also smiled. Li Xiaoyao? Who was this? However, Lin Ling is only at the 8th level of the martial immortal realm. Today's ceremony will be somewhat troublesome. Meng Lu had only met Lin Ling in the Azure province. Thus, he did not know about Li Xiaoyao. Humph. You're merely a nameless genius of the 9 prefectures. What qualifications do you have to compete with my second brother? A genius cannot be insulted. Hearing this, Indra snorted in disdain. His words stunned Meng Lu. Indra was so confident in Lin Ling? He couldn't help but shake his head. The confidence in his heart was not strong. How could he know that with the help of Longyang and Dongmen Hong's divine poison, Lin Ling had allowed Li Xiaoyao to return from his previous life and gather all of his memories? Thus, his aura was naturally not weak. Of course, it wasn't just Meng Lu. In fact, many people in the Tantric sect did not believe in Lin Ling, especially Chong Qingzi. If he can't win any of these two sect ceremonies, then Master will probably die with everlasting regret. Sigh, it's better to believe in one's own people than an outsider. Chong Qingzi sighed. Not long after, everyone arrived at the center of the plain. There were ancient ruins here. The ground was made of hard jade that could withstand the impact of a half-step saint. In the distance, the surroundings were packed with people at this moment. All the cultivators in the spirit state were watching from afar. They were densely packed like stalks of grass. The Tantric sect is here. The era of the Tantric and manifest sects will depend on today. I feel that the Tantric sect is the future of the spirit state. The manifest sect is still a bit weak. Ignorant. It seems like you don't know what kind of people the manifest sect has. Let me give you an example. The disciple of the Heavenly King, Lin Ling, is very powerful, right? He's a big shot in the spirit state. However, the #1 genius of the manifest sect doesn't seem to be famous. In fact, he's already a tyrant in the 9 states. The two of them aren't on the same level at all. So what if it's the 9 states? How can you be sure that the spirit state is weaker than the 9 states? I don't care to explain it to you. Go back and think about it. Voices sounded like waves. Everyone's emotions were high and their blood was boiling. The people of the Tantric sect are here? That's Lin Ling and Chong Qingzi. In the ancient ruins, 18 old men looked at the sky. Their gazes fell on Lin Ling and Chong Qingzi because those two were the hope of the Tantric sect. One is at the 8th level of the martial immortal realm, and the other is at the 4th level of the half-step saint realm. An old man frowned. He wasn't surprised that Chong Qingzi was at the 4th level of the half-step saint realm. However, Lin Ling was only at the 8th level of the martial immortal realm. This caused the elders to be stunned. And they were the saints of the Azure Dragon Hall. As for the manifest sect, everyone stared at Lin Ling and Chong Qingzi in astonishment. 8th level of the martial immortal realm? What a joke. It was simply a dream to participate in the ceremony with such strength. It seems that we've been deceived. Lin Ling isn't the trump card of the Tantric sect. In the manifest sect, a middle-aged man said calmly. He wore a dragon python robe and looked majestic. The light of a saint was extremely dense. He was Lord Xianzong. I think so too. Because apart from Chong Qingzi, the others are all in the semi-saint realm. Lin Ling is the weakest. This means that Lin Ling isn't the trump card of Tantra at all. He was just a smokescreen that Tantra spread before. Next to the middle-aged man, a fair-skinned young man dressed like a scholar said. Although he was handsome and gave off a feminine feeling, his aura was a little cold. This kind of coldness wasn't callousness but a kind of sinister coldness. And he was the #1 genius of the manifest sect, Xiang Anning. At the same time, the people of the Tantric sect landed and looked at the manifest sect. The master of the Tantric sect cupped his fists and bowed to Lord Manifest Sect from afar. The latter did the same and greeted him politely. Of course, while Lord Manifest Sect was being polite, he was also smiling coldly. The master of the Tantric sect naturally saw this smile but did not say anything. That was because the trump card of the Tantric sect, Lin Ling, did not make him very confident. This is Lin Ling, right? 8th level of the martial immortal realm? He dares to fight with such strength? It seems that the Tantric sect has other plans. At this moment, in the manifest sect, a short but extremely burly young man laughed disdainfully. He obviously did not take Lin Ling seriously. He thought that the Tantric sect was hiding a trump card and that it was some other powerful genius. This young man was called Zhang Qinghong. He was the #2 genius of the manifest sect and also a big shot of the spirit state. Hearing this, the people of the Tantric sect sneered. Sakura and Meng Lu naturally did not want to be at a disadvantage. However, before they could speak, Lin Ling also spoke. So what if he's an 8th level of the martial immortal realm? My world is not something you can understand. As for that little guy at the 5th level of the half-step saint realm, this should be Xiang Anning. He's indeed stronger than I thought, but that's it. Yes. If it was before, Lin Ling would definitely have a hard time defeating a 5th level of the half-step saint realm. But now he did not care. Chapter 3104. The Clash of the Five would change the era. My world is not something you can understand? If these words came from the mouth of a half-martial sacred realm expert, they were convinced. However, when it came from an 8th-layer martial immortal, they felt like it was a joke. Most importantly, the 8th-layer martial immortal had said it so naturally, as if everything was real. This Lin Ling seems to be a smokescreen sent out by the Tantric sect. Why is he so confident as a smokescreen? Wow! The entire grassland was soon filled with exclamations. The people of the prominent sect burst out laughing after being stunned. The geniuses ranked first and second did not even look at Lin Ling. Instead, they focused their attention on Sakura and Meng Lu, assuming them to be the trump cards of the Tantric sect. Sigh. Do you really have to embarrass yourself? Chong Qingzi let out a sigh once again. If it weren't for his master, he would have scolded Lin Ling. Master, let's begin. I'll do my best in this battle. Following this, Chong Qingzi said to the senior of the Tantric sect. He had already treated himself as the last hope of the Tantric sect. Let's begin. The senior of the Tantric sect immediately glanced at the Azure Dragon Hall. If that's the case, the Azure Dragon Hall will not waste any more time. The winner of today's battle will become the strongest sect of the spirit state. A respectable old man from the Azure Dragon Hall said. He had initially planned to help the Tantric sect, but after seeing the Tantric sect digging their own grave, he decided not to waste any more time. The two sects can send out 5 people, and the loser will be eliminated. The one who defeats the 5 will decide the era. Any objections? No objections. I agree. Agreed. The seniors of the prominent sect and the Tantric sect nodded. Very well, but this is a duel. No killing is allowed. I hope you remember. Agreed. The Azure Dragon Hall was the sacred ground responsible for protecting the Emperor's life. Thus they had made the request. Not long after, a 2nd-layer half-martial sacred stepped forward from the prominent sect. The genius of the prominent sect, the Immortal Highness of the North Sea, who had cultivated for 2,000 years and possessed a 2nd-grade desolate body with 4/10 of his strength. He stood in the ruins and reached out his right hand with his index finger, beckoning the people of the Tantric sect. His attitude was no doubt extremely arrogant. Perhaps he also assumed the Tantric sect. How dare you! Chong Qingzi was instantly enraged and wanted to walk out. Senior brother Chong Qingzi, let's go first. But at this moment, Meng Lu spoke up, causing Chong Qingzi to frown. In fact, he didn't really believe in Meng Lu and Indra. He felt that Lin Ling's friends weren't that strong. The North Sea Immortal Venerable is not weak, and his cultivation level is higher than yours. Although you can also fight against those of a higher level, this advantage does not exist in the face of a prominent Grandmaster prodigy. Although Chong Qingzi did not believe in Meng Lu, they were on the same side, so he still warned him. It's fine. We eat and live in Tantric Buddhism. We have to do something no matter what. Meng Lu said without even looking at Chong Qingzi. Chong Qingzi nodded. Lin Ling's friends were not that strong, but their personalities were not bad. Go. Master Tantra nodded as well. Meng Lu immediately walked out. The North Sea Immortal Venerable narrowed his eyes and stared at Meng Lu with disdain. First layer of half-saint? Don't you think you're too weak? Defeating you won't be a problem. The two of them looked at each other. Their figures approached from afar, and then they collided. On the surface, Meng Lu was clearly weaker, so no one thought that he could win. However, Meng Lu was only a martial immortal when he first came to the Spirit Province. For him to be able to reach the half-saint realm in such a short period of time, it could be seen that his talent was not weak. So, even if he lost, the Tantric Buddhism did not think that he was trash. Meng Lu won. Lin Ling glanced at it indifferently, then closed his eyes and began to cultivate again. How could it be so simple? Hearing Lin Ling's words, Chong Qingzi frowned. Moreover, seeing that Lin Ling was actually cultivating, a trace of displeasure rose in his heart. All the resources he had accumulated were only at the 8th layer of the martial immortal realm. Just thinking about it made one's heart ache. How could he know that when Lin Ling cultivated, not only did he have to break the barrier of the ancient tree of Mount Yu, he also had to help Sakura and Yu Yu cultivate. After that it would be his turn. How could 3 months be enough? So, he had to seize the time and break through as soon as possible. Boom! At the same time, the ruins rumbled, and the gods and demons descended. A third-grade desolate body, and what kind of desolate body is that? A figure flew out. It was the North Sea immortal of the Xian sect. I admit defeat. Soon, a voice came from the Xian sect, admitting defeat for the North Sea immortal. Because if the latter was injured, it would be even more disadvantageous. Also, because the 5 people of the Tantric Buddhism had come out, they had to defeat all 5 people of the Xian sect. Only then could they seize the era. Next, Meng Lu said indifferently. Boom. Next, a young man holding a horsetail whisk walked out. He had the demeanor of a transcendent being. Moreover, after he walked out, his eyes were still half closed, as if he was an expert from another world. The horsetail whisk in his hand was clearly extraordinary. It was surging with celestial wind. It was a kind of divine wind that seemed to come from the universe. This is a treasure left behind from the era of gods. The Tantric Buddhism master immediately narrowed his eyes. That Xian sect genius talent was on par with Meng Lu's. What was powerful was the horsetail whisk in his hand. That horsetail whisk clearly restrained Meng Lu's tomb-guarding aura, making it difficult for Meng Lu to fight back. That was because immortals and ghosts could not coexist. Gradually, Meng Lu was defeated. Haha! Loud laughter came from the Xian sect's side. Of course, the laughter wasn't too exaggerated because they also knew that the geniuses who had come out earlier were only there to scout out the enemy situation. The stronger ones were yet to come. Xian sect has won. It's your turn to fight. Do you want to change people or not? A voice came from the Azure Dragon Hall. I'll continue to fight. The young man holding the horsetail whisk said indifferently. He had already defeated 1 person. If he defeated 4 more people, the Xian sect would win. Sakura, that horsetail whisk also restrains your white bones. You're not suitable to fight. Meng Lu said to Sakura. Sakura originally wanted to fight, but he held back. As for the 2 of them, one was defeated and the other couldn't fight. They could only rely on Lin Ling and Chong Qingzi. Chong Qingzi frowned and wanted to walk out. Hold on, let my wife warm up. But at this moment, Lin Ling slowly opened his eyes and said, Let your wife go? Are you still a man? You're afraid of losing face on such an important occasion, so you let a woman go? Chong Qingzi couldn't hold it in anymore. Lin Ling looked at him indifferently and said, My wife is only warming up. If it weren't for the fact that her cultivation level is lower, she would be able to defeat all 5 of them. As for me? After I go, you won't even have the chance to fight. Chong Qingzi didn't expect Lin Ling, an 8th-layer martial immortal, to be so arrogant. Do as Lin Ling says. However, the Tantric sect's lord still valued Lin Ling, so he said to Chong Qingzi, Master. Chong Qingzi sighed, feeling very unwilling. However, Yu Yu had already walked out. Lin Ling said, Yu Yu, apart from that guy called Xiang Anning, you don't have to worry about the others. If you get serious, the other 4 won't be your match. When these words were spoken, the entire plane fell silent. It was undeniable that Yu Yu was very beautiful. Many people were attracted to her. Chapter 3105. The ultimate desolate body swept through everything. Lin Ling, who is your wife's master? You have to know that a 5-person battle is of great importance. Her battle means that she has secured a spot. Chong Qingzi looked at Lin Ling and said. This was naturally his first time seeing Yu Yu. Although she was pretty, that did not mean she was strong. Her master is me, Lin Ling said without looking at him. Chong Qingzi opened his mouth but was speechless. Lin Ling was at the 8th stage of the martial immortal realm, while Yu Yu was at the half-sage realm. The weak became the master of the strong? He could not help but look at Xingxiu Yun with an odd expression. He could not understand what kind of disciple Xingxiu Yun had recruited. Even Xingxiu Yun gave a wry smile. Although he had given Yu Yu plenty of pointers, Yu Yu typically did not listen to him. Instead, she would often pester Lin Ling. As for Lin Ling, there was no need to mention him. This disciple had always been independent and rarely sought his guidance. Beauty, you are no match for me. After Yu Yu walked out, the youth with the horsetail whisk shook his head and said, in his opinion, Yu Yu was even weaker than Meng Lu. I'll give you 3 breaths of time. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless. The youth said again. Yu Yu did not say a word. She walked forward like a lotus that had just emerged from the water, refreshing and refined. Just as the youth was about to attack, Yu attacked as well. Her attack was extremely simple and even her ultimate martial Dao was extremely weak. However, the effect was extremely obvious. That was because the ultimate desolate body had descended. The white dragon god appeared in a shocking manner, its light illuminating the surroundings. At that moment, Yu's fine black hair danced in the wind. Her beauty was suffocating, pure and flawless. With a gentle wave of her hand, ordinary half-sage realm essence surged out. However, after fusing with the ultimate desolate body, it immediately became an unimaginable power. Boom! The youth's horsetail whisk was immediately sent flying and smashed into the ground. He spat out blood as he looked at the beauty in disbelief. The entire plane was deathly silent at this moment. You even used your trump card against such a trash. Aren't you giving him too much face? Only Lin Ling's voice could be heard. He seemed to think that Yu was overdoing it. Your disciple. Chong Qingzi was flabbergasted and couldn't believe his eyes. Ultimate desolate body. Their esoteric Buddhism actually possessed the ultimate desolate body. One had to know that in the 9 prefectures, there were only a handful of geniuses with such talent. It was rare to see one in their entire lives. Ultimate desolate physique. The master of Tantra and the others were stunned as well. At that moment, they all saw Yu as the final trump card of Tantra. Although Lin Ling was not of much use in this battle, Yu was trained by Lin Ling. This meant that for the past 3 months, Lin Ling had placed the hopes of Tantric Buddhism on Yu. And this hope did not disappoint them. Haha, the ultimate desolate body. After Xueqi recovered from his shock, he could not help but laugh out loud. The ultimate desolate body is a rare talent even in the 9 prefectures. Master, the ultimate desolate body is not rare. However, ordinary people cannot enter that world. In fact, the 9 prefectures are filled with ultimate desolate bodies. If one had to say who had the calmest reaction, it would be Lin Ling. Upon hearing this, Xueqi was dumbfounded. Why did it feel like his disciple was giving him pointers? He was speechless, but he could not care less as he laughed out loud. This is the trump card of Tantric Buddhism. Over at Xianzong's side, everyone had extremely solemn expressions. Next. At the same time, a clear voice sounded. Yu floated in midair and made an inviting gesture to Xianzong. Xianzong was completely silent. There was no longer the arrogant laughter from before. Let me test him. Senior brother Xiang, you are our final trump card. Do not fight for now. At this moment, Zhang Qinghong, who was ranked 2nd, walked out. He held a sword in his hand and his sword beam was like a rainbow. Clearly, he was a powerful swordsman. And his talent was also at the desolate body grade. Behind him hung 12 rainbows. He had the power of 12 gods. I have 3 swords that will run through my entire life. If you can block them, I will admit defeat. Zhang Qinghong said calmly as he pointed his sword at Yu. Yu nodded and did not speak any nonsense. First sword, Pil Yang Swallow Shock. The sword beam flashed as 40% of the Azure Rainbow's rank power erupted. It was like the power of a god. His talent was a 3rd-grade desolate body. It was not very strong and could only be considered average. However, his ultimate martial Dao was extremely powerful. It had reached the realm of a complete Dao, which was already a minor Dao. Rumble. In terms of ultimate martial Dao, Yu was clearly inferior to him. Hence, her method was very simple. It was to use her talent to fight. At this moment, the power of rank and talent clashed once again. A terrifying power erupted. The plane seemed to be overturned, but Yu was safe and sound. The terror of the ultimate desolate body was an eye-opener for everyone. Second sword, first azure dust. Dust danced in the sky like flying immortals. Upon closer inspection, the young dust was actually formed by swords. This sword seemed to come from the chaos of the universe. The entire sky of the spirit state exploded. Zhang Qinghong was also known as the #1 swordsman in the spirit state. At this moment, he lived up to his name. Yu struggled to block the second sword. Her body glowed brightly like the goddess of light, but she was also protected by the dragon god. The dragon god roared at the sky and soared into the sky. The surrounding Jian Chen finally managed to block the sword by a hair's breadth. This made Zhang Qinghong's expression change drastically. The third sword was not delivered in the end. I admit defeat. Following that, he turned and left. This also made the Xian sect's people change their expressions. Zhang Qinghong was the number 2 peerless genius. Now that he had lost, it was up to Xiang Anning. If Xiang Anning also lost, the Xian sect would lose today. This result had clearly exceeded their expectations. The tantric sect side was undoubtedly invigorated. Cheers immediately sounded like waves. Good, 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 Chong Qingzi said with a red face. He was extremely excited. He looked at Yu Yu with admiration and longing in his eyes. Of course, he knew that Yu Yu was Lin Ling's woman, so he could only envy her secretly. He said with a sigh. The ultimate desolate body was actually the wife of an 8th-level martial immortal. She was not worthy at all. Although there are 5 battles, if Xiang Anning loses, the others will be useless. This means that the most crucial battle has arrived. Our tantric sect will win. Even the tantric sect's masters were extremely excited. Xiang Anning frowned as he looked at Yu Yu. His eyes were the same as Chong Qingzi's. There was longing in his eyes. He also thought to himself, such a beautiful goddess should be compatible with me, the number 1 genius of the spirit state. He walked out. He planned to use his strength to show Yu Yu, who was the number 1 genius of the spirit state. Yu Yu, admit defeat. You just obtained the ultimate desolate body and are not familiar with it. You can't fight someone 4 stages above you. Just as everyone was filled with anticipation, Lin Ling's calm voice suddenly floated out. The tantric sect instantly panicked. The eyes of the tantric sect's masters also turned red. Chapter 3106. Chong Qingzi was defeated. As for Xiang Anning, his eyes had also turned red. He had wanted to prove himself, but in the end, Yu Yu was going to admit defeat without even fighting. How would that beauty know how powerful he was? Brother Ling. Yu Yu wanted to test her limits. The gap between our realms is too big. Come back. Lin Ling said with a smile. Yu Yu's methods were too simple. She only knew how to suppress with her talent. She was definitely no match for Xiang Anning. There's a gap of 4 small realms. It's difficult for you to win. After all, you're not me. Lin Ling said. His words made the plain even more silent. Lin Ling was only at the 8th stage of the martial immortal realm. Everyone had already eliminated him. Yet, he said that he was qualified to fight someone who was 4 levels above him. His skin was too thick. No, not 4 levels. It was 6 levels. When Xing Shiyun heard that, he almost burst out laughing. His disciple seemed to be low-key, but his words were so arrogant that it made people speechless. All right. Yu Yu immediately retreated. Xiang Anning looked regretful. He glared at Lin Ling with hatred. Finally, he snorted and left. Although he had won, he did not feel comfortable winning. When he looked at the tantric sect and Chong Qingzi, they looked like ducks who had been grabbed by the neck. They looked anxious. Tantric sect had almost won. However, Lin Ling actually asked Yu Yu to admit defeat in the most crucial battle? This was too casual, too careless. After Yu Yu admitted defeat, Tantric sect no longer had a trump card. Could they rely on Lin Ling? Don't worry. They can't do anything. Lin Ling couldn't help but comfort them when he saw how anxious they were. But it would have been better if they didn't comfort him. The more they comforted him, the more they sighed. Although Xianzong really couldn't make any big waves, Lin Ling probably couldn't make any small waves either. Haha, we've won. Next. At this moment, Xianzong seemed to have victory in his grasp, and everyone laughed loudly. Only Chong Qingzi and Lin Ling from Vajrayana sect could still fight. Lin Ling was ignored by everyone, so the only one left was Chong Qingzi. Big brother, do you want to go play? Lin Ling looked at Sakura and said, which made Sakura restless. He had been waiting for a long time. Let me. Chong Qingzi clearly didn't think that Sakura could change anything, so he took the initiative to walk out. If I lose, then the era will change. Chong Qingzi's expression was extremely solemn. His aura quietly erupted from his body. The entire tantric sect fell silent. They had placed all their hopes on Chong Qingzi. Chong Qingzi was the #1 genius of Tantra. If he was defeated, what right did the others have to fight? Have you finally revealed your final trump card? The eyes of the experts on Xianzong's side flashed. Master Xianzong waved his hand and the North Sea venerable immortal Meng Lu who'd been defeated by Meng Lu walked out. You are no match for me. Chong Qingzi looked at him and said indifferently. What he said was the truth. I know, but you have to defeat the 5 of us to win. Therefore, I won't let you win so easily. Of course, it's the same for our senior brother Xiang. If he wants to defeat the 5 of you, you won't let him win so easily. However, the beauty from before has admitted defeat. You are the most powerful one left. The rest are not worth mentioning. The young man said indifferently. Then let's fight. Chong Qingzi nodded immediately. The young man's words made sense. He could only defeat him. The 2 of them quickly intertwined. It was like a battle between saints. It was an eye-opener for the warriors watching from afar. However, Chong Qingzi had a 4th-grade desolate body. His ancient desolate chi was extremely terrifying. In addition, he was a 4th-grade half-saint. Therefore, it didn't take long for him to defeat the young man. The young man was slightly injured. He left with blood at the corner of his mouth. However, he smiled excitedly. With your strength, you won't be able to see senior brother Xiang. That's not up to you, Chong Qingzi said disdainfully. He looked at the second person from the Xianzong. The second person was the young man with the horsetail whisk. He didn't waste any time and attacked Chong Qingzi with all his strength. He wouldn't let Chong Qingzi win so easily. Moreover, the Xianzong could see Chong Qingzi's strength through this battle. A moment later, the young man with the horsetail whisk was defeated. The third person followed closely behind. This also raised the spirits of the people from the Tantric sect. Chong Qingzi was winning consecutively. Perhaps he could defeat the 5 from the Xianzong in one go. The third person had clearly expended a lot of Chong Qingzi's strength, but Chong Qingzi won again. Hee. Chong Qingzi is inferior to me. At this moment, the second person from the Xianzong, Zhang Qinghong, finally smiled. Through the previous 3 people, he had confirmed Chong Qingzi's strength. Senior brother Xiang, you don't have to go. I'll defeat him. Zhang Qinghong held his sword and walked out. He was full of confidence. Chong Qingzi was also waiting for his opponent's 3 swords. Waning Sun's return. After Zhang Qinghong appeared, he raised his sword high. The sky darkened. The terrifying power of cultivation level crazily increased. It reached 40% and gradually reached 50%. A ray of light surged down from the dark sky. It was as if a ray of sunlight shone down from the thick clouds, but it was extremely dazzling. It was like the sword of a god. Look, there's a sword coming from the chaos. Someone finally let out a cry of surprise. The third sword shocked the spirit state. That sword came from the chaos of the universe. It had the power of thunder and revealed its sharpness. Whoosh! This sword cut off Chong Qingzi's right arm, causing him to vomit blood and retreat. Chong Qingzi, you haven't improved your strength all these years, but this is normal. The Tantric sect has given all their cultivation resources to others, so you naturally haven't improved. Zhang Qinghong pointed his sword at Chong Qingzi and said. His long hair danced wildly, and he looked like a peerless swordsman in the spirit state. Thud thud thud. Chong Qingzi kept retreating. He was defeated, and his face was pale and dispirited. Most importantly, after he lost, the Tantric sect also lost. The era had changed. Master. He returned to the Tantric sect's master and knelt down. The Tantric sect's master sighed. At this moment, he seemed to have aged a lot. The people of the Tantric sect were all gloomy. They knew that their era had passed. Brother, it's your turn to go out and play. However, at this moment, an indifferent voice suddenly sounded from the Tantric sect. It was Lin Ling's voice. This caused the pupils of the people of the Tantric sect to narrow. At this time, Lin Ling could still remain so calm. Could it be that he didn't care about the survival of the Tantric sect at all? Haha, this is the Lin Ling who used all the cultivation resources of the Tantric sect? On the Xian sect side, everyone naturally laughed. They felt that the Tantric sect had lost the bet, and lost miserably. Because even if you used all the cultivation resources on a dog, it would at least wag its tail. However, when it was used on Lin Ling, not only did he not wag his tail, but he also had a look of indifference. Such a disciple would definitely anger the Tantric sect to death. All right. Sakura didn't seem to know that everyone was laughing at him. He walked out calmly. Even Chongqingzi has lost. Do you think you can turn the tide? No one was optimistic about Sakura. The people of the Xian sect all said disdainfully. Chapter 3107. A genius should not be humiliated. Big brother. Just warm up a little. With your strength, you shouldn't be able to win against that Qinghong. However, just as the Vajrayana's hope rose, Lin Ling spoke again. To warm up? Lin Ling actually treated this grand ceremony as a game? At this moment, other than Xing Xiao Yun, everyone from Tantric Buddhism hated Lin Ling to the core. And the reality was indeed so, because after Sakura swept through the three of them, he was finally defeated by Zhang Qinghong. Moreover, Sakura didn't feel ashamed, because he hadn't even been in the Spirit Province for 10 years, but he was already able to fight against the strongest genius of the Spirit Province. This made him very satisfied. Ha! He laughed heartily as he walked back, reminiscing about the previous battle. However, the Tantric sect could no longer laugh. Everyone lowered their heads. The Master of Tantra looked at the sky with tears in his eyes. He had never expected that Tantra would be destroyed by his own hands. Looks like the era is over. Lord Tantric Buddhism, you're old. Enjoy your remaining time. As for Tantric Buddhism, there's no need for it to exist anymore. On the side of the Azure Dragon Hall, an elder spoke after a long sigh. I know. The Master of Tantric Buddhism nodded calmly. He then looked at all the members of Tantric Buddhism with a hint of reluctance in his eyes. Sir, we won't leave. Tantric Buddhism will not die. I live as a member of Tantric Buddhism and die as a ghost of Tantric Buddhism. If I want to disband Tantric Buddhism, I will die. My lord. A large number of voices came from the Tantric sect. Many of them had tears in their eyes and were reluctant to part. On the plains, the cultivators of the spirit state were silent. Seeing an ancient force that had been passed down for tens of millions of years suddenly disintegrate, they felt very bitter in their hearts. Alas, the times have changed. We can't change the rules of the gods. He couldn't bear to part with these old comrades of his, but what could he do? Wait, I don't think I fought. However, just as everyone was grieving, an untimely voice suddenly rang out. Everyone looked around and realized that the person who spoke was a blue-robed young man. He was Lin Ling, the one who had been groomed by the entire Tantric Buddhism sect but had disappointed everyone the most. At this moment, the eyes of the people from Tantric Buddhism turned red. They were so impulsive that they almost killed Lin Ling because Lin Ling had caused their deaths. Xian Zong clearly let out a sky-piercing laugh. Even Chongqingzi was defeated. The beauty with the ultimate desolate physique also admitted defeat. What else could an 8th-level martial immortal do? Moreover, he actually wanted to fight. Could it be that he also wanted to warm up for fun? What did he take Tantric Buddhism for? There's an ingrate in Tantric Buddhism. Fortunately, this Lin Ling is not a member of our Xian Zong. Otherwise, we would have been killed by him. How famous was he in the past? Now, it seems like he only relied on the name of constellation clouds to strut around. Sounds of schadenfreude came from Xian Zong's side, but they were not in a hurry. They would slowly watch Tantra suffer. Lin Ling, how dare you speak? A burly man from Tantric Buddhism had a murderous look on his face. He could not help but attack. His large hand reached for Lin Ling. However, Lin Ling stood straight without fear. Instead, he looked calmly at Tantric Buddhism. I said that I would illuminate the spirit province. Yu and the others were shocked when they heard that. The corner of Sakura's mouth revealed a smile. Second brother, you finally made your move. Tantric Buddhism frowned. Up until now, he did not know if he should trust Lin Ling. He could not help but look at Constellation Clouds because the latter was Lin Ling's master. However, Constellation Clouds smiled and nodded heavily. I brought him back. If he loses, I, Constellation Clouds, will pay with my life. This sentence was powerful and resonant. Tantric Buddhism was shocked when he heard that. He looked at Lin Ling. Lin Ling, what did you say earlier? I will illuminate the spirit province. Lin Ling said word by word. His voice was not loud, but it was like thunder, shocking the entire spirit province. The man who attacked Lin Ling stopped his attack and looked at Lin Ling in disbelief. I have been in the spirit province for a long time, but my master is Constellation Clouds. Tantric Buddhism is my home. Tantric Buddhism once asked me to win this battle. Then, I will illuminate the spirit province. Lin Ling did not even look at that man. He looked at the entire spirit province. I will illuminate the spirit province. That voice reverberated endlessly, echoing in everyone's hearts. Fight, Lin Ling. Tantric Buddhism finally smiled. He did not know if Lin Ling could win, but he believed that Lin Ling could illuminate the spirit province. Lin Ling smiled faintly. He carried 2 swords on his back and walked out step by step. On the Xian sect side, everyone was stunned. They did not expect Tantric Buddhism to place their hopes on a junior at the 8th stage of the martial immortal realm. Were they crazy? Haha. Deafening laughter soon came from the Xian sect. Laughter also came from the plains. Illuminate the spirit province? Their voices were heroic, but the reality was disappointing. Do you want to come at me together or one by one? However, Lin Ling did not seem to know what they were laughing about. He said calmly with his hands behind his back. His voice made everyone laugh even louder. The 5 people from Xianzong were all the strongest geniuses. Even the weakest one was not someone Lin Ling could defeat, let alone all of them together. Let me. Finally, a genius from the Xian sect walked out. It was the genius that Meng Lu defeated. He tilted his head and looked at Lin Ling. 8th stage of the martial immortal realm? You may have been very powerful before, but in the past 3 months, the Xian sect has used up all their resources to nurture us. We are no longer the same as before. Times are changing. Make your move. Lin Ling did not waste any time and said calmly. Shameless boasting. The young man shouted coldly and unleashed his Jie Yuan. Although he was only at the 1st stage of the half-saint realm, he had a 2nd stage desolate body. Most importantly, his strength was not weaker than Dongmen Hong's. This was because he had used endless cultivation resources to accumulate powerful strength in the past 3 months. I am the North Sea Immortal Venerable. With the North Sea, I can shake the world. The young man attacked. The terrifying sea turned into a fist and surged forward. The spirit province instantly shook. This was the fusion of the power of cultivation level and the desolate body. At this moment, the people from the Tantric Buddhism sect frowned. Logically speaking, they did not think that Lin Ling could win. However, Lin Ling was their only hope. However, when their gazes fell on Lin Ling, they found that Lin Ling was indifferent with his hands behind his back. Rumble. The palm formed by the North Sea contained terrifying power and directly engulfed Lin Ling. Too weak. At this moment, Lin Ling's eyes finally flickered with a sharp light. He did not activate his Jie Yuan. Instead, he unleashed his physical strength and punched out. The moment he punched out, the spirit chi that had accumulated in his body was devoured in a grandiose manner. Boom! One punch, shattering the stars. The sea was blasted apart by the punch. The punch was like a meteor that pierced through the sea and landed on the young man's chest. Time instantly froze. No one dared to blink. They did not know what the result would be. When everything calmed down, people realized that Lin Ling was behind the North Sea Immortal Venerable with his hands behind his back. The North Sea Immortal Venerable was standing there with his palm in his hand. They did not know what had happened. If it weren't for the Tantric Buddhism sect, I would have killed you with one punch. Chapter 3108. One of the 100 Bloodlines, 100-Eyed Demon Lord. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, the North Sea Immortal behind Lin Ling collapsed. One punch. It could destroy everything. Wow! There was an uproar in the ancient ruins. Although the North Sea Immortal was only slightly stronger than Lin Ling, he was still a sage to be expert. How could he be defeated by one punch? Moreover, this was because Lin Ling had given him face. Otherwise, he would have been killed with one punch. Next. Lin Ling said indifferently with his hands behind his back. The experts of the Xian sect were all furious because they thought that Lin Ling would not be able to win in the end. However, Lin Ling was too arrogant. He actually dared to humiliate the Xian sect. In fact, although the people of the Vajrayana sect were relieved that Lin Ling had defeated the North Sea Immortal, they did not think that Lin Ling could win many rounds. The second person is Bai Nahan. He has a 4th grade desolate body, the golden centipede divine body of the 100 Bloodlines. Next. Someone from the Vajrayana sect said solemnly. If it was before, they thought that Lin Ling would be able to defeat Bai Naihan because Lin Ling had defeated Dongmen Hong, who was the second peerless genius of the Vajrayana sect. However, in the past 3 months, the Xian sect had spent a lot of effort to nurture peerless geniuses. Those peerless geniuses were no longer the same as before. It could be said that even if Dongmen Hong was here, he would not be able to defeat Bai Naihan. A genius cannot be humiliated? What nonsense! Now that I'm here, do you want to defeat me with one punch? Bai Naihan said disdainfully. He was a little excited because his talent was not weak. However, he had no achievements before. Now, it was time for him to make a contribution. If he defeated Lin Ling, his name would definitely spread throughout the spirit state. The Xian sect would also pay more attention to him. Thinking of this, he was a little excited. I'll give you a chance. Kneel down and admit defeat because you can't defeat me with one punch. Why struggle? Bai Naihan said again. As expected of senior brother Bai. He looks very confident. Senior apprentice brother Bai is an unparalleled genius. It's a pity that his martial arts comprehension is a little weak. Otherwise, he would have been the second most exceptional genius in Xianzong. Although his martial arts comprehension is a little weak, senior brother Bai's talent is one of a kind. He will definitely win. Over at Xianzong's side, everyone's emotions had been ignited by Bai Naihan. Someone even waved at the experts of Tantric Buddhism, wanting to make a bet. The people of Tantric Buddhism had been holding their breaths for a long time, so they naturally nodded in agreement. From their point of view, even if they lost, they had to lose with dignity. Come on! Surprisingly, Xing Shiyun was the one who screamed the loudest. If Tantric Buddhism was about to be disintegrated, what else did he have to worry about? Hee, let's do it. Disciples, take out all the Emperor crystals you have. We'll win for sure. One of the 4 heavenly kings from Xianzong sneered. He was Bai Naihan's master, so he was very clear about his disciples' strength. All right. The Xianzong disciples immediately shouted. Even those who didn't have enough royal crystals had to gather enough. After all, this was a sure win. And those royal crystals were handed over to the Azure Dragon Hall for them to be the judges. This made the Azure Dragon Hall's saints a little jealous, and they almost wanted to make a bet. But because of their status they all endured it. Sigh, this is a sure win. One of the saints sighed and said, Do you think I'm afraid of you? Tantric Buddhism also went all out. They used all their wealth to gather everyone's royal crystals for a shocking bet. This made the warriors in the plains envious. They wanted to make a bet, but they were afraid of offending Tantric Buddhism, so they could only be anxious. Very interesting. Bai Naihan obviously wasn't in a hurry to make a move. When the bet started, he smiled slightly. Lin Ling, right? Why don't you admit defeat? I've decided. I'll break one of your arms. Lin Ling ignored the voices around him and said indifferently. You're really an idiot. Bai Naihan shook his head and finally decided to make a move. Desolate body descended. 4th grade. Golden Ni divine body. Legend had it that the golden Ni divine body was left behind by an ES god from the era of gods. He was called the 100-eyed demon lord. He wasn't strong, but his talent made the gods suffer. Although Bai Naihan wasn't as strong as the 100-eyed demon lord, he could at least make warriors suffer. Bai Naihan's body exploded with a terrifying aura. His clothes were instantly torn apart, and a large number of eyes appeared on his body. These were golden eyes. Endless golden light shot out from the eyes. This caused countless eyes to appear in the sky. Ah, my eyes! On the plains, someone curiously stared at Bai Naihan. Immediately, blood flowed out from his eyes, and he was completely blinded. You're crazy. That's a 4th grade desolate body. How can you look at Senior Bai? Someone reprimanded. What a terrifying desolate body. Many people didn't dare to look at Bai Naihan as they spoke in fear. Golden light shone brightly as the 1,000 eyes shone brilliantly. Bai Naihan had already transformed into the 100-eyed demon lord. He had a disdainful smile on his face. The aura of a 4th grade desolate body was probably enough to make Lin Ling kneel down. I've said it before. You're an idiot. When all the eyes opened, Bai Naihan didn't forget to softly say this sentence. Following that, he launched a mighty attack. However, everyone also thought that Lin Ling was an idiot. With Bai Naihan's current strength, He was probably invincible in the initial stage of the half-saint realm. How could Lin Ling fight him? At this moment, countless eyes shot towards Lin Ling like stars. The light rays were like needles that could destroy everything. Among them, Bai Neihan's finger shot out like a centipede's poison. Obviously, Bai Neihan wanted to defeat Lin Ling in one move. Looking at Lin Ling again, he still had his hands behind his back. He didn't move at all. It was as if he was affected by the endless eyes and was indifferent. Of course, everyone thought that Lin Ling was affected by the endless eyes and had lost the ability to fight. Sigh. Sighs could be heard from the crowd. No one thought that Lin Ling, who was only at the 8th stage of the martial immortal realm, could create a miracle. He's really an idiot. Even now, he's still not prepared to resist. Even the Azure Dragon Hall's saints shook their heads. Even if Lin Ling could really resist, it was already too late. Once Bai Neihan attacked, Lin Ling wouldn't have time to use any of his techniques. Illuminate the spirit province? The people of Xianzong laughed mockingly in unison. However, at this moment, Lin Ling finally moved. In fact, his eyebrows only moved slightly. His hands were still behind his back. I think that you're the idiot. Of course, he also spat out a sentence. Just as he finished speaking, a black shadow shot out from his left arm like lightning. Crackle! The black shadow was as fast as lightning and lashed out. Bang! There was a loud boom, and then the countless eyes in the sky all closed their eyes. There were even cries of pain. The endless light rays were also extremely chaotic at this moment. What's going on? Chapter 3109. I am a heaven-defying existence. In front of the youth, Bai Neihan was tightly bound by the black vines. Even his mouth was covered by the vines. There was only shock in his eyes. Using your talent to fight me? If you're not an idiot, then what are you? Lin Ling said softly, although I don't need a punch to defeat you, I only need a whip. As soon as he finished speaking, the black vines whipped out like lightning. With a swoosh, blood spurted out. Bai Neihan's right arm was broken by the whip. Black blood flowed out from the wound. Woo-woo. Bai Neihan's mouth was covered by the vines. He could only let out muffled sounds. His eyes were about to pop out. As for the people from the Xian sect, their mouths were wide open. They did not know what had happened. Senior brother Bai had a grade 4 desolate body. Why couldn't he use his talent? Admit defeat. Bai Neihan admits defeat. An expert found that the situation was not right, so he anxiously spoke. Hearing this, the Tsang Dragon Hall also hurriedly spoke, asking Lin Ling to release Bai Neihan. The latter held his broken arm with a face full of fear. Bai Neihan, why didn't you defeat him? After Bai Neihan walked back, the people from the Xian sect complained. Now that they had admitted defeat, they had obviously lost a lot in the previous bet. Bai Neihan was obviously very bitter. He did not know what to say. Speak. The Xian sect's 4 heavenly kings were furious. I don't know what kind of evil technique he used. With that whip, my talent was drawn out. Bai Neihan did not dare to hide anything and quickly spoke. Silence. The Xian sect was silent. The distant plains were also deathly silent. Draw out his talent? Even a grade 4 desolate body was drawn out. This was too heaven-defying. Involuntarily, everyone looked at Lin Ling with eyes full of fear. What kind of vine is that? Even the 4 heavenly kings had extremely grave expressions. Lin Ling's methods could be said to be invincible. The more monstrous a genius was, the more ineffective it was against him. In the chaos of the universe, there is definitely no heaven-defying existence. That vine is so demonic, so it must have its flaws. Perhaps Lin Ling will have to expend a lot of his lifespan every time he uses it. Furthermore, this vine must have its limits. It might only be able to extract a 4th-grade desolate body. At this moment, the young man with the horsetail whisk spoke. I think so too. Zhang Qinghong nodded. She didn't expect Lin Ling to be so capable. Not bad, not bad. Bai Neihan definitely followed the topic. He felt extremely humiliated. Originally, he should have won beautifully. However, he didn't even manage to touch a hair on Lin Ling's body. Instead, his arm was cut off by Lin Ling. It was as if Xianzong had lost the bet. He didn't have the face to see anyone. Trash. Although Xianzong agreed with Zhang Qinghong and the rest, he was still furious with Bai Neihan. Let's see how your senior will defeat him. Mortal fairy, you go. Although Lin Ling's vine is strange, you don't rely on your talent. It's useless against you. A heavenly king said to a young man. All right. The young man with the horsetail whisk nodded immediately. At this moment, everyone in the tantric sect was laughing excitedly. They still didn't think that Lin Ling could win in the end. However, at least, Lin Ling had won 2 rounds for them. Even if the tantric sect was going to collapse in the future, they would still make Xianzong suffer before that. Good disciple. Xing Shiyun was undoubtedly the most excited. He then looked at Lin Ling and said, Disciple, we won a lot of imperial crystals previously. A large portion of them belongs to you. Come over and we'll split the imperial crystals slowly. It seemed like he wanted Lin Ling to split the spoils. However, in reality, he wanted to let Lin Ling rest for a while. After all, he had fought 5 rounds in a row. If he didn't rest, it would be disadvantageous to Lin Ling. There's no need. Next. However, Lin Ling rejected him directly. He was even more anxious than Xianzong to go to the next round. This made Xing Shiyun stomp his feet angrily. He was furious. At the same time, the young man with the horsetail whisk walked out. Lin Ling, there has never been a heaven-defying existence in the chaos of the universe. What do you think? Yes. After the young man walked out, he said calmly. The horsetail whisk in his hand made him look like an immortal. What are you trying to say? Yes. Lin Ling didn't even look at him. It was as if he didn't care about him at all. This made the young man frown. Lin Ling was too arrogant. Your black vine from before was very strange. However, I don't think it's invincible. There has never been a heaven-defying existence in the chaos of the universe. Do you agree with me? In fact, I've asked many geniuses in the 9 states. As long as they are true geniuses, they all agree. This is because the universe is vast and boundless. No matter how strong a cultivator is, they have to respect the gods. Yes. The young man looked at the sky and said, thinking of the days when he was training in the 9 states. His heart was filled with reverence. Humans respect the heavens, and the heavens respect humans. His words made many people nod their heads. As the strength of the cultivators increased, they realized how powerful the gods were. On the contrary, some frogs at the bottom of the well thought that they could go against the heavens and surpass the heavens. It seems that the mortal fairy has a new understanding of the ultimate martial path. The 4 heavenly kings on the side of Xianzong smiled and said, this was a realm that could only be comprehended by oneself and could not be explained by words. Only by respecting the heavens could one touch the great Tao of the universe. I am a heaven-defying existence. However, when everyone was sighing, Lin Ling also spoke and interrupted the mortal fairy's sighing. She was stunned for a moment and almost laughed out loud. You dare to say something like that? I am a heaven-defying existence. Lin Ling said again expressionlessly. The ghost genius Li Xiaoyao was a heaven-defying existence. Otherwise, he wouldn't be qualified to be called the ghost genius of the 9 states. Ha ha ha. The mortal fairy laughed even louder. Previously, she had taken Lin Ling seriously. Now, it seemed that Lin Ling was just as long as one was a real genius, no one dared to say that he was a heaven-defying existence. Well, let me see how heaven-defying you are. You defeated 2 of my senior brothers with a punch and a whip. Now, are you still so confident? The mortal fairy snorted coldly. Hearing that, Lin Ling nodded calmly. Good, good, good. Let me see if you are still so confident. The mortal fairy waved the horsetail whisk in her hand gently. The 6 evils wind filled the air. It could blow away people's past and present lives, and blow away the Qian, Zhen, Can, Zhen, Break, and Lian evil wind. According to legend, this was the horsetail whisk of the 6 evils deity, which was a 6th grade ultimate weapon. It was placed in the 6 evils mountain of the underworld and blew it for 8 million years. It could extinguish the divine fire, blow away the heavenly water, and even move the world. It could blow the world from the east world to the west world. It could be called a divine item that could reverse the universe. Swoosh! The whole plane seemed to be overturned at this moment, which was an eye-opener for people. 1,000 changes. Lin Ling's eyes were calm as he stared at the rolling 6 evils wind. He also spat out a sentence. Then, he turned around and left for the constellation cloud. This time, the secret sect and the Xian sect were stunned. Facing the mortal fairy's 6 evils horsetail whisk, was Lin Ling going to admit defeat? Ha ha, heaven-defying existence? After a moment of silence, someone from the Xian sect laughed loudly. They thought Lin Ling obviously admitted defeat and went to find his master for comfort. Chapter 31:10. A sword came from the universe. Master, didn't you ask me to calculate the imperial crystals? I'm here. Lin Ling looked at Xueqi and smiled. Fuck. Hearing that, the people of the tantric sect almost fell to the ground. They were in the middle of a battle, and Lin Ling was here to calculate the money? He really knows how to pick the right time. Wasn't this equivalent to admitting defeat? Chong Qingzi almost fainted on the spot. He knew that Lin Ling was crazy and couldn't be relied on. My dear disciple, your opponent is still here. Xueqi finally said with a wry smile. It's okay. After calculating the money, I'll tell him what the heavens are. Lin Ling smiled faintly, which made Xueqi frown. He felt that Lin Ling was implying something, so he looked at the mortal fairy in the distance. The people of the tantric sect also stopped looking at Lin Ling and looked forward. The moment they saw it, their pupils immediately widened like cowbells. Haha, defying the heavens? This is defying the heavens? You are under my feet now. How can you defy the heavens? Lin Ling, my 6 deadly winds taste good, right? Be my dog. The indifferent mortal fairy was waving his horsetail whisk and laughing wildly while looking at the sky. Every time he laughed, he waved his horsetail whisk excitedly. But there was no one in the sky. No, there was not even a strand of hair. What was the mortal fairy laughing about? Who was he attacking? The people of the Xian sect were all dumbfounded. Mortal fairy. Attack. What are you doing? One of the 4 heavenly kings of the Xian sect shouted angrily. The mortal fairy was too embarrassing. Because Lin Ling was calculating the money, he didn't attack Lin Ling. Instead, he roared at the sky like a madman. Was he kicked in the head by a donkey? However, it would have been better if the heavenly king hadn't shouted. After the heavenly king shouted, the mortal fairy became even more graceful, as if she had already won. White jade capital in the sky. 12 towers and 5 cities. Immortals touch my head, and I live forever. Reciting a poem? The martial artists on the plain were all dumbfounded. The mortal fairy seemed to be crazy. In fact, in the mortal fairy's eyes, Lin Ling had already knelt down and begged for mercy. He even kowtowed and admitted defeat. In the Xian sect, everyone was on one knee and looked at the mortal fairy with admiration. That was all he saw. This made the mortal fairy a famous person in Xianzong. Thousands of years later, his legend would spread throughout the spirit province. Therefore, he recited a poem to make himself look like an immortal. Of course, this was all an illusion. Heavenly kings of the heavenly kings of the heavenly kings. Wasn't this the demonic art of the heavenly kings of the heavenly kings of the Xian? Ofs. Moreover, compared to the past, today's demonic technique was even more terrifying. Not only did it conjure the mortal fairy, but it also conjured the 6 evils wind. As expected of a heaven-defying existence. Est. Lin Ling said as he walked toward the mortal fairy. Seeing this, the people of the Xian sect all had goosebumps. This battle was too weird. They looked at Lin Ling as if they were looking at a real immortal who could dominate everything. Mortal fairy. What are you doing? They hurried to remind the mortal fairy, but it was useless. Lin Ling had arrived behind the mortal fairy and looked at her calmly. The mortal fairy was still reciting a poem with her hands behind her back. This scene undoubtedly made everyone want to laugh. Of course, while he was laughing, the fear in his heart was like a monstrous wave. Lin Ling's method was too terrifying. Although I don't need a punch or a whip to defeat you, I only need one move from the illusion god's true inheritance. Lin Ling reached out his arm and grabbed the mortal fairy's neck. Then, he slammed her into the ground. Bang! The ground cracked open. The entire plain was silent. Many people were excited. Secondly, they were from the illusion god sect. Today, the illusion god's true inheritance reappeared in the world, proving how powerful it was. Fighting against elite geniuses, his feet didn't occupy the ground, and his hands didn't touch the clouds on the horizon. It was that easy. The illusion god's true inheritance. What kind of martial art is that? It's too heaven-defying. Then, the plain was filled with excited voices. The three sons of the Qi family knelt down in excitement. Qi Shi kept kowtowing to Lin Ling. In the past, he asked Lin Ling for help. Today, Lin Ling let the illusion god shine on the spirit province. Junior brother Lin. Qi Yu and Qi Yang also knelt down and kowtowed. This favor was heavier than the heavens, and it would be difficult to repay it. Bang! The ground continued to shake. The mortal fairy spat out blood and was defeated. However, he was still reciting a poem, still immersed in the illusion. This showed how powerful the illusion god's true inheritance was. It could be said that he had entered a reincarnated illusion. Finally, he said weakly, "Why am I suddenly injured? Could it be that I have gone mad?" Boom! As soon as his voice fell, the plain exploded, and the spirit province shook. This was because Lin Ling was right in front of the mortal fairy, and he had defeated him and injured him. The mortal fairy also sensed it, but he still didn't know that it was Lin Ling who attacked. "I am your sky." At this moment, Lin Ling stomped his foot again. With a bang, 100-meter-tall wave of earth rushed out from the ground, and the mortal fairy spat out blood again. He was seriously injured. At this moment, he finally woke up. When he saw Lin Ling in front of him, his eyes widened. His heart, his soul, and his everything was trembling. This was because after he woke up, he vaguely guessed something. Bang! Unfortunately, it was too late. He fainted. Before he fainted, the only thought he had was that Lin Ling didn't use a punch. He defeated him with a whip, but it was only a single move. Next! Before Xianzong's surprised voice could be heard, Lin Ling spoke first. The plain was silent, and the Xianzong was even more silent. Even the Azure Dragon Hall was the same. Lin Ling, who was at the 8th stage of the martial immortal realm, had consecutively defeated 3 opponents in a single move. At this moment, they couldn't help but think that Lin Ling was indeed a heaven-defying existence. "Is it my turn?" Zhang Qinghong walked forward step by step. When Lin Ling arrived, he was the first to laugh at Lin Ling. Now, he realized that Lin Ling was somewhat unfathomable. "Use your strongest sword move." Lin Ling looked at him calmly and said, "An 8th stage of the martial immortal realm can block my sword?" Zhang Qinghong's expression was extremely serious. He realized that Lin Ling was even more difficult to deal with than Chong Qingzi. As for Chong Qingzi in the distance, he secretly clenched his fists. He was more nervous than anyone else, and there was a bitter smile at the corner of his mouth. Although he didn't know if Lin Ling could defeat Zhang Qinghong, the strength that Lin Ling had displayed really left him speechless. That was because the tantric sect's accumulated resources did not disappoint anyone. Of course, if Lin Ling could defeat Zhang Qinghong, the tantric sect would no longer have any doubts about Lin Ling. "In terms of swordsmanship, you're still not worthy of my attention." At this moment, Lin Ling waved the tyrannical song sword behind him and said calmly while pointing at Zhang Qinghong, "I hope that you won't disappoint me." Zhang Qinghong's Qinghong divine sword also appeared. A divine rainbow descended, and its luster illuminated the world. Chapter 31:11. Swords from the Gods. At this moment, Chong Qingzi clenched his fists tightly. Zhang Qinghong's sword contained 50% of his power. In addition, he was a 4th stage half-saint. He was much stronger than Lin Ling in every aspect. He wondered if Lin Ling would be able to block that sword. There is a sword, freely coming from the universe. Finally, in the thick clouds, a ray of light illuminated the earth like the sun. The divine sword had arrived. Before the sword landed, the spirit province was already collapsing. "This sword strike is the proudest sword strike of my entire life." Zhang Qinghong let out a cold voice. Perhaps because of the pressure, he, the #1 swordsman of the spirit province, unleashed his most dazzling sword. Whoosh! The sword was very fast, faster than light. A god stepped on a rainbow and slashed down with his sword. It was as if he wanted to separate the spirit province from the universe, forming a dividing line. The power of this sword was second in the spirit province. No one dared to claim that they were first. Clang! Lin Ling also raised his sword, but it was clearly difficult for him to resist the divine sword in the sky. Lin Ling's surroundings instantly split open and floated up, causing Lin Ling's surroundings to become chaotic. Rumble. The deafening sound continued to ring. The people of the Tantric sect clenched their fists. They knew that Lin Ling would be unable to resist. The people of the illustrious sect finally smiled. They were very happy. That was because Zhang Qinghong had 3 swords throughout his life. The third sword was the most terrifying. It was the sword of the divine rainbow that was summoned from the chaos of the universe. Lin Ling, you've lost. Seeing Lin Ling's aura weakening, Zhang Qinghong smiled faintly. There is a sword that comes from the gods. However, at this moment, Lin Ling's voice also floated out, causing Zhang Qinghong to be stunned. His sword came from the universe, but Lin Ling's sword was even more terrifying. It came from the gods. Of course, he also thought that Lin Ling was just making a last-ditch effort and was just boasting. Tantric Buddhism, you must be very disappointed in me because I've only reached the 8th level of the martial immortal realm despite exhausting all my cultivation resources, right? At this moment, Lin Ling spoke again. The people of Tantric Buddhism were silent, but they were silently agreeing with Lin Ling. I've said it before. Xing Shiyun is my master, and Tantric Buddhism is my home. When it comes to my home, my family, and my friends, I've never let them down. In the past, now, and in the future it will always be the same. Lin Ling's voice became louder and louder. Hearing that, Xing Shiyun clenched her fists in excitement. Yu Yu and the others also smiled. They knew that Lin Ling was indeed such a person. Let me show you 3 months of bitter cultivation. Lin Ling raised his head and looked at the divine sword in the sky. Under the stimulation of the divine sword, the spiritual energy that was brewing in his dantian was now surging with monstrous waves. His 4 dantians began to move. His first dantian had broken through to the 9th level of the martial immortal realm. Lin Ling was originally blocking the sky with his sword, but at this moment, he slowly raised it. What? He broke through? There was no one who wasn't shocked when they saw that. Zhang Qinghong was the same. However, he shook his head. It was only a small level. It was impossible for him to block his divine sword. However, just as this thought appeared in his mind, the sword in Lin Ling's hand was raised higher and higher. Surging realm essence was gushing out. This was not the realm essence of a 9th level martial immortal. At this moment, the entire spirit province was rumbling because of Lin Ling's realm essence. 9th level martial immortal? Is that all? Lin Ling began to walk toward the sky. Could it be? As soon as he said that, the Tantric Sama suddenly became excited. Could it be that Lin Ling was going to break through 2 levels in a row? One should know that breaking through to the martial immortal realm was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. 4,000 of people to break through to the first level, it would take an endless amount of time. As for breaking through to the 2nd level, it would take twice as long. As for breaking through 2 levels in a row, that only appeared in legends. Impossible. Zhang Qinghong also let out a furious roar. Nothing is impossible in front of a genius like me. Lin Ling's hair danced wildly as the tyrannical Song sword clashed with the godly sword in the sky. His voice was like thunder. The realm essence in his body became even more frenzied, as if it had formed a black hole. Under the external force, his 4 dantians were even clashing with each other. This formed an indescribable force. Boom! When this force completely exploded, the sky was filled with stars and surging realm essence. 10th level martial immortal realm. Breaking through 2 levels in a row. Furthermore, the 4 dantians were all at the 10th level of the martial immortal realm. When they combined, the strength of the realm essence was like 4 10th level martial immortal realm experts working together. The devil is the god, and the god is the devil. At the same time, a lonely wind drifted out from behind Lin Ling. A headless old man appeared. He held a broken sword in his hand and looked through the sky like a god. There is a sword that comes from the gods. Whoosh! The new sword was sparkling and resplendent as it slashed through the sky. 30% of the demonic sword stage against 50% of the godly rainbow stage. It was a fierce battle between 2 swordsmen in the sky. Clang! The demonic sword was majestic. How could the universe compare to God? The sky was immediately split open. The rolling dark clouds were split open by the sword. The blue sky appeared again, and light shone in all directions. Clang! The crisp sound of a sword breaking could be heard at this moment. At the same time, broken swords began to fall from the sky. They were sparkling and extremely beautiful. Puh! At the same time, Zhang Qinghong spat out a mouthful of blood. The godly rainbow sword in his hand broke into pieces. He stared at the sky as if he could not believe what was happening. God and the universe. At this moment, he knew who was stronger. My world is not something you can understand. This sentence also lingered in his ears, causing his gaze to turn. He stared at the blue-robed young man. At this moment, it was as if he was not looking at the genius of the spirit state, but a dazzling genius of the 9 states. He was like an ant, while the blue-robed young man was like an eagle. I lost. In the silence, Zhang Qinghong threw away the broken sword in his hand. As if he had lost all will. He lowered his head and turned to leave. There was always someone better than you, and a mountain higher than you. Today, he understood this point. Everyone from the Xian sect had their mouths wide open. They had no choice but to admit that the sword was so amazing. At this moment, no one dared to laugh at Lin Ling. Lin Ling was a monster among monsters. As for the tantric sect, they were silent. The middle-aged man who wanted to kill Lin Ling looked at the proud figure in the sky in a daze. In the end, he knelt down with a thud and kowtowed. I'm sorry. I wronged you before. Seeing him like this, everyone in the tantric sect was stunned. Then, one by one, they knelt down. I'm sorry. Their neat voices spread throughout the spirit state. After Lin Ling came out of seclusion, they saw that Lin Ling's realm did not increase at all. Therefore, they looked down on Lin Ling. They blamed Lin Ling, but Lin Ling did not say anything. It was as if he wanted facts to prove everything. However, they did not plan to give Lin Ling a chance at all. Now, they finally knew how terrifying Lin Ling, who had used up all the cultivation resources of the tantric sect, was. He did not let down the tantric sect at all. Xingxiu Yun is my master. The tantric sect is my home. I will definitely fight for them. Chapter 31:12. The Battle for First Place. Illuminating the Spirit Province? The final battle is here. The tantric sect's lord smiled as he looked at the sky. However, his eyes were moist and tears were flowing down his cheeks. That was because the tantric sect's trump card was Lin Ling. Lin Ling, defeat Xiang Anning. Chong Qingzi roared. At that moment, he had wholeheartedly admitted that Lin Ling was the tantric sect's ultimate weapon. Clang! In the sky, the blue-robed youth cast his indifferent gaze at the scholar from the Xian sect. The #1 genius of the spirit province. Let's fight. After defeating you, I'll defeat all the geniuses of the 9 provinces. The blue-robed youth's heroic voice let everyone know that the blue-robed youth did not care about the #1 genius of the spirit province at all. The battle of the pinnacle had begun. Whoa! Wind whistled from the ground. It was cold and ancient. Xiang Anning raised his head and looked at Lin Ling. He slowly stepped forward. He had finally walked out. This was the #1 genius of the spirit province who had never used his true strength. Until now, no one knew how powerful he was. However, to be called the #1 genius of the spirit province, his strength was naturally not to be underestimated. Of course, as the tantric sect's ultimate trump card, Lin Ling was also an existence that could not be underestimated. That was because in the previous 4 battles, Lin Ling defeated the strongest geniuses of the Xian sect with a punch, a whip, a move, and a sword respectively. In addition, he was able to break through 2 stages in a row. His battle prowess was not something a martial immortal should have. Therefore, if Lin Ling fought Xiang Anning, he might not be defeated easily. At the beginning, I thought you were an ant. However, I've clearly underestimated you. Xiang Anning said calmly as he floated in the sky. In fact, he was also shocked by the strength Lin Ling displayed. However, he had come back from the 9 prefectures and had seen many peerless geniuses. Therefore, this kind of surprise quickly disappeared without a trace. He estimated that Lin Ling could fight against an initial stage half-saint, but it would be difficult for him to fight against a middle stage half-saint. I'm a 5th layer half-saint. Xiang Anning spread open his arms. Unparalleled realm essence spread out like clouds, lingering around him like the waves of the sea, surging and moving. My talent is a grade 4 desolate body, 100 great bloodline. Sea deity bloodline. Xiang Anning said again. He actually had the bloodline of the sea god, which was on par with the foreign races Lin Ling had encountered in Dragon Tooth City. You, Lin Ling, are the #1 genius of Tantric Buddhism and the ultimate weapon. I admit this. However, I find it laughable that you said you were a heaven-defying existence. You don't know what kind of opponents I've faced in the 9 continents, nor do you know what the 10 heavenly lords are. Xiang Anning said as he looked at the distant sky. In his opinion, the 10 heavenly lords were the true peerless geniuses and heaven-defying disciples. The 10 Directions Celestial Monarch? The top genius I met in Yuzhou? How could Xiang Anning know him? Others did not know who the 10 Directions Celestial Monarch was, but Tantric Buddhism and the 4 heavenly kings did. Their expressions changed drastically. The 10 Directions Celestial Monarch was a genius of the 9 continents. He was a sage. Apart from Yen and Miao continents, he had the aura to sweep through all the other divine continents. I was undefeated after 300 moves against him. Xiang Anning said again. Tantric Buddhism and the others were even more surprised. They did not expect Xiang Anning to have reached such heights in the spirit continent. Lin Ling was indifferent. He did not know the 10 Directions Celestial Monarch because he was not a genius from the era of geniuses like Li Xiaoyao. You seem like an ignorant person. Forget it. You don't know the 10 Directions Celestial Monarch, but you must have heard of the fighting for Light Cicada. The 10 Directions Celestial Monarch is his disciple. Xiang Anning said with a smile when he saw Lin Ling's expressionless face. Lin Ling's eyes finally flickered. Obviously, Lin Ling had heard of the fighting for Light Cicada. Fighting for Light Cicada. Quasi-martial god. Of course, compared to Lin Ling's emotions, the entire spirit continent was in turmoil. The spirit continent was not like Qing continent. Most people knew who the experts of the 9 continents were. They had heard of the fighting for Light Cicada. That was because the fighting for Light Cicada was a genius whose name had shaken the 9 continents. It was said that he had only lost once among his peers. Later on, he rose rapidly and became a martial god master. Although he had not fully stepped into the martial god realm, his strength was undeniable. No wonder the 10 Directions Celestial Monarch was so strong. He was the fighting for Light Cicada's disciple. I see. At this moment, Lin Ling spoke with a faint smile. He did not know the 10 Directions Celestial Monarch, but he knew the fighting for Light Cicada. That was because he was a genius from Li Xiaoyao's era. Unfortunately, he had lost to Li Xiaoyao. Let's fight. Clang. Lin Ling did not waste time. The tyrannical song sword appeared in his hand. Great Ocean Spirit Rhinoceros. Seeing that Lin Ling's emotions only fluctuated slightly, Xiang Anning was clearly unhappy. He had said so much before because he wanted Lin Ling to know his inferiority. Being able to have the last laugh in the spirit continent did not mean that he could do it in the 9 continents. He pointed with his finger. The waves around his body rolled and turned into a finger like countless tentacles, attacking Lin Ling. What was terrifying was that although the waves were huge, they were not messy. Xiang Anning controlled them to perfection. From this, it could be seen that the title of the #1 genius of the spirit continent was not undeserved. Seeing this, Lin Ling moved and exploded with the speed of 40 worlds, dodging the first finger of the waves. It's useless. Xiang Anning shook his head. He did not care about this speed. He stepped on the waves as if he was riding the wind and breaking the waves. Strangely, his speed did not seem fast, but he could instantly pass through 10,000 worlds. He actually moved closely behind Lin Ling, and this was the speed of 50 worlds. I'm not good at speed, but I'm still above you. A disdainful voice floated out at the same time. Xiang Anning pulled his right hand behind his back, and a finger of the sea attacked Lin Ling like a tentacle. Is that so? While the people of the Tantric sect were worried, Lin Ling shook his head. The speed of 40 worlds had quietly increased, becoming faster and swifter. 45 world speed? Seeing this, Xing Suiyun gasped. Could it be that Lin Ling increased his speed during the battle? No, it's at least 47 world speed. The Tantric sect's eyes narrowed. Furthermore, what terrified them the most was that this was not the end. Lin Ling continued to swim through the sea as if he was surrounded by danger. He avoided the fingers that were formed by the sea, and in the end, his speed reached the speed of 50 worlds. With this speed, not to mention the naked eye, even the heavenly eye technique could not see through it. Great, with 50 world speed, Lin Ling is in an invincible position. The Tantric sect's masters were overjoyed. In fact, although Lin Ling was the ultimate weapon of the Tantric sect, they were not confident that he could defeat the #1 genius of the spirit continent. Chapter 31:13. The Ultimate Weapon. Using a battle to nurture a battle? Compared to the shock of the crowd, Xiang Anning appeared very calm. His hands formed a complicated seal, causing the surrounding sea to appear. At the same time, a palm formed by the divine sea also slammed towards Lin Ling. Let's see how you block this. Boundless ocean. The huge palm was sparkling and resplendent, but with a rumbling sound, it was no weaker than the sea of 10,000 realms. The bloodline of the sea god was a talent that allowed one to control 10,000 seas. Naturally, it was no small matter. At this moment, Lin Ling lifted his head and stared at Xiang Anning, who was surrounded by the ocean. He knew that Xiang Anning was not weak. Among his peers in the spirit state, he was probably the most difficult opponent to deal with. However, right now, Lin Ling really needed to nurture himself through battle. He needed to stimulate all the spiritual energy in his body and step into a new realm. Tyrannical Singing Sword. Once again dodging the ocean finger, Lin Ling's sword slashed towards the huge palm. Rumble. At this moment, the demonic sword stage erupted with a power that could destroy everything. A sharp sword slashed out. However, this sword strike did not have much of an effect at this moment. Even though Lin Ling's 4 dantians had fused into the sword, the effect was still the same. This was because Xiang Anning's cultivation realm far surpassed Lin Ling's. In addition, his talent was not weak, and his ultimate martial Dao was extremely sharp. Thus, Lin Ling's methods were not very effective. Xiang Anping was also an all-round genius. Rumble. The gigantic palm of the ocean was already within sight. Everyone could see that Lin Ling seemed to be unable to resist it, and was about to be submerged by the ocean at any moment. Hee hee. But at this moment, Lin Ling laughed instead. That's more like it. Because the spirit energy within his body was continuously being refined by the enormous pressure. Moreover, his 4 dantians didn't have time to devour it, so a large amount of spirit energy surged into his body, causing his fiend god physique to improve madly. Roar! The dragon god roared and shot up into the air, hovering behind Lin Ling, looking incredibly awe-inspiring. At the same time, strange images appeared behind Lin Ling as a huge mouth appeared, ready to devour everything. More than half of the negative effects brought about by the sea god's power were instantly devoured. One had to know that in the ocean, even if one's movement technique was very fast, it would definitely be greatly reduced. This was the power of the realm-swallowing beast. At this moment, the realm-devouring beast's talent had also stepped into the ranks of a second-grade desolate body. Strength of the dragon. A steady stream of energy flowed into his body, causing Lin Ling to immediately let out a roar. He brandished his great sword like a divine dragon swinging its tail. He was a triple cultivator of essence, energy, and spirit. In the realm of essence, he had finally stepped into a new world. His strength had also reached 300 world force. Together with the merging of the 4 dantians, the slash instantly slashed the giant palm in half. Terrifying realm essence was gushing out, causing everyone in the spirit state to be greatly shocked. Lin Ling was so ferocious. One had to know that that was the power of a 5th-grade half-saint, while Lin Ling was only a martial immortal. You're quite capable. Xiang Anning's expression turned ugly. He did not expect Lin Ling to have really broken through, and he had done so with the help of his attack. Therefore, his movement technique was like flowing water. Tens of thousands of palms appeared, shattering the void and blasting toward Lin Ling. That terrifying attack could probably cause the spirit state to collapse. However, Lin Ling still had a smile on his face. He activated 50 world speed, bypassed Xiang Anning, and appeared behind him. The great sword in his hand then slashed out horizontally, turning into a sparkling and resplendent sword ray. This sword was mixed with the power of the demon sword. If it hit Xiang Anning, he would definitely be injured. However, as expected of the #1 genius of the spirit state, Xiang Anning's battle experience was extremely rich. He shouted coldly, "I've said that you're only slightly capable." As his voice drifted out, he seemed to flow with the current. Not only did he avoid Lin Ling's fatal attack, but he also appeared behind Lin Ling strangely. A spear formed by the sea attacked Lin Ling's back like lightning. Terrifying realm essence fluctuations came from behind him, causing Lin Ling's smile to become even wider. He did not plan to avoid anything. Without even looking behind him, he slashed out horizontally with his sword. You'd better use your full strength. Otherwise, after I completely awaken, you won't have any chance. At the same time, Lin Ling's left hand grabbed out. On his arm, black lightning struck out. It was Little Kunlun. Little Kunlun could strike out the opponent's talent. This was the nightmare of all cultivators. Seeing this, the Tantric Sex Lord and the others shouted wildly. Lin Ling seemed to have grasped the opportunity. He might be able to win. Humph. However, Xiang Anning coldly snorted. He was not afraid at all and allowed the black lightning to strike. With a bang, the water wave was blown apart by the whip. Little Kunlun was actually attacking the sea. This whip was clearly dodged by Xiang Anning. A very heaven-defying treasure, but it can't hit its target. What's the use of it? Xiang Anning's voice sounded from the other side. The sea spear was still shooting towards Lin Ling. From this, it could be seen that this person was indeed difficult to deal with. He actually managed to break Lin Ling's Little Kunlun. This was also the first time Little Kunlun had failed after attacking. However, Little Kunlun was intelligent. It did not use the techniques that it had always been good at. It was clearly furious. The vines rushed into the sky and grew wildly, turning the entire sky into a primeval forest. This shocking scene was extremely vast. It was an eye-opener for countless cultivators in the spirit state. However, Xiang Anning weaved through the vines like waves of water, once again avoiding all the vines. As for the spear, it still did not retreat a single step. Instead, it shone with a cold light. 1,000 transformations. In the blink of an eye, Lin Ling let out a low roar. His soul power spread out like water, and an illusion appeared. This soul martial art had released endless light before, but it did not have any effect at this moment. Your soul martial art has a fatal flaw. After you use it, if you're 1,000 miles away, you won't be affected at all. However, to me, 1,000 miles is only a breath's time. I don't even need a breath's time. The sea still filled the sky, as if it was Xiang Anning's home ground. He moved with the water and disappeared 1,000 miles away. The illusion was broken by him again. Moreover, just as the illusion disappeared, he shot towards Lin Ling like an arrow, his spear like the sea. Time and space divine steel. Seeing this, Lin Ling let out a light roar. A divine steel fell from the sky to resist the spear. Rumble. The two strongest geniuses of the spirit province clashed once again. One of them held a giant sword while the other held a blue long spear. They moved faster than the speed of light, and a myriad of techniques continued to be used, causing the battle to become extremely intense. I didn't expect the Tantric Sex final weapon, Lin Ling, to be so powerful. Lin Ling, do your best. Everyone in the Tantric sect was shocked. Even if Chong Qingzi was sent out, he would not be able to fight until now. However, Lin Ling could, using various methods, fight evenly with Xiang Anning. Most importantly, Lin Ling was only a 10th stage martial immortal. What if he was at the same level as Xiang Anning? The result was obvious. Chapter 31:14. The Tribulation of a Saint. Who is this Lin Ling? Where did he come from? His methods are unpredictable and incomparably sharp. If this continues, the spirit state will be his. Over at Xianzong's side, everyone's expression was solemn. They did not expect Lin Ling to become more ferocious as the battle went on. Lord Xianzong looked gloomily at the sky. The corner of his mouth moved slightly, and a voice transmission was quietly sent out. This caused Xiang Anning's eyes to flicker, and he nodded lightly. In fact, even without Lord Xianzong's reminder, he did not intend to hold back anymore. Lord Xianzong's voice was precisely for Xiang Anning to kill Lin Ling. This was because even if Lin Ling was defeated today, and Xianzong could become the #1 in the spirit state as he wished, Lin Ling would definitely make a comeback in the future. With the strength that Lin Ling had displayed so far, no one could guarantee how terrifying his future would be. It's time to end this. Therefore, Xiang Anning did not hesitate and finally revealed his trump card. Woo woo woo. The clouds in the sky seemed to have been summoned by something. The clouds parted, revealing the pitch-black chaos of the universe. In the chaos, tadpole-like shadows swam down, majestic and extremely orderly. These shadows looked like souls, but they seemed to be much more powerful than ordinary souls. It was a strange thing that lingered between a soul and a dead spirit. As those shadows got closer and closer to the ground, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. Even the experts in the late stage of the half-saint realm felt this way. one of the 100 great bloodlines, the god of the underworld talent. Someone finally let out a solemn voice. It's at least a 5th grade one. Even Xianzong's people were shocked. What, 2 talents? One is a 4th grade desolate body, and the other is a 5th grade desolate body. Lord Tantric Buddhism stared at the sky and realized that the color of the surrounding ocean had changed, becoming pitch black. It was no longer an ocean, but more like the netherworld sea. Was this Xiang Anning's hidden trump card? Moreover, a 5th grade desolate body was the strongest talent in the spirit state. At this moment, everyone was worried for Lin Ling. With the addition of countless underworld souls, the power of the ocean became even more terrifying. Not only was it majestic, it was also mixed with the power of Yin, because these were souls that had truly been extracted from the netherworld. As for the underworld, it was the origin of all hell in the myriad of worlds, and it was also the origin of all ghost realms. In the 9 states, many experts also possessed talents from the underworld. Each of these experts was an indomitable figure. As for the spirit state, there were a few people who also possessed the aura of the underworld, such as Sakura and Meng Lu. Their talents were actually related to the underworld. Lin Ling, I was just playing with you before. Now, let's test my strength. Xiang Anning's eyes turned pitch black. His palm, like the boundless ocean, pressed down on Lin Ling. This made Lin Ling instantly feel a great amount of pressure. Xiang Anning's realm essence was even more turbulent at this moment, causing the black ocean to emit a cold aura. This cold aura was not cold, but it could penetrate a person's soul. Furthermore, any warrior who was close to the ocean would be frozen, turning into a black ice sculpture. The most terrifying thing was that a shadow would shoot out from the ice sculpture, taking away the warrior's soul. Clearly, after using the 2 talents at the same time, not only did his strength increase significantly, the most terrifying thing was those underworld souls. With this, I can block the 10 heavenly lords. Xiang Anning's voice reverberated in the ocean. This was the foundation of his battle against the geniuses of the 9 states. Splash! The black ocean, under the gigantic palm, crossed the sky, the ruins, and even the entire spirit state. Ka. Wherever the ocean passed, everything in the world would be frozen, turning into black statues. Those statues were people, objects, and even a stalk of grass. At this moment, it was frozen, but because it turned into black ice, it seemed to be baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. It was very ferocious. Among them, there was a statue holding a large sword and carrying an ancient sword on its back. At this moment, it had also turned into a statue. That person was Lin Ling. Seeing this, the people from the Azure Dragon Hall sighed. The outcome has been decided. Sigh, I have to say that this Lin Ling is also a rare genius in the spirit state. Unfortunately, his cultivation is still a bit weak. If he had reached the martial immortal realm, today's situation would be different. Yeah, seeing the 2 strongest geniuses clash, no matter who dies, this is a huge loss to the spirit state. It makes our hearts ache. Compared to the Azure Dragon Hall's pity, the people from the Xian sect were ecstatic. Cheers spread out like waves. Their Xian sect won. The era belonged to their Xian sect. Some of the more impatient people even roared at the sky. Senior Xiang, the #1 genius of the spirit state. Their voices soared into the sky and spread through the clouds. As for the people from the Tantric sect, their faces were gloomy. However, they did not blame Lin Ling because they saw that Lin Ling had done his best. At least, if it was someone else, they would not even be able to block 3 of Xiang Anning's attacks. Their Tantric sect's ultimate weapon had been defeated. However, just as everyone thought that the outcome was over, all the ice statues on the ground started to tremble. Moreover, the trembling became faster and faster. Finally, the black ice statues started to tremble. At this moment, cracks appeared in the black ice world that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. This shocked everyone. They realized that the source of the trembling of the black ice world seemed to be within one of the ice statues, and that ice statue was Lin Ling. At this moment, inside the ice statue, Lin Ling was motionless. Although the nether souls rushed into his body and tried to devour him, his powerful soul power immediately rushed out and formed a soul wave. It shook the nether souls and even devoured them. Although the nether souls were of a higher level than the undead souls, the number of nether souls that entered his body was not large. Therefore, it was much easier and faster to deal with them compared to the last time in the Qing state. On the contrary, with the help of the nether souls and the pressure outside his body, Lin Ling's dantian was boiling. His 4 dantians spun like comets and crazily absorbed the spiritual energy in his dantian. As expected, with the stimulation of external forces, it's faster than breaking through on my own. The corner of Lin Ling's mouth curled into a cold smile. Boom! His dantian exploded with a roar. The light of a saint gushed out of his body like a tide and a wave. First level half-saint. Rumble. At the same time, a huge bolt of lightning came crashing down from the sky. This bolt of lightning was white, but it carried the pressure of a god. This was the tribulation of a saint. Every expert who wanted to break through to the half-saint realm would have to go through the trial of a god. If they passed, they would become a saint. If they failed, they would be reduced to ashes and could not even enter the cycle of reincarnation. Someone has broken through to the half-saint realm. It looks like Lin Ling. A series of exclamations could be heard. The eyes of the tantric sect's elders were wide open. Even Xiang Anning was the same. Chapter 31:15. A battle in broad daylight. The ferocious lightning struck down as if a palm had struck the earth, forming a storm. Cracks appeared on the black ice sculpture world. The sage tribulation tested 3 key factors. First, talent. Those who were not talented enough would face a 10% increase in danger if they forcefully broke through. Second, ultimate martial arts. Those who were not good at martial arts would face another 10% increase in danger. Third, a solid foundation of cultivation. If they were not strong in all 3 factors, then breaking through depended on luck. Boom. However, after the first bolt of lightning struck, Lin Ling was actually unscathed. He was like an ice sculpture, steady and unmoving. This surprised the tantric sect masters and the others. However, the tribulation clouds in the sky did not disperse. Instead, they became thicker and thicker, as if a god had arrived and looked at the common people. His large hand struck down again. The second bolt of lightning struck, and divine thunder rumbled. Everyone in the spirit state was in a state of panic. Because only 1 tribulation was needed to become a sage, but Lin Ling had to undergo 2? What did this mean? Could it be that the gods valued Lin Ling more? Rumble. The second sage tribulation struck, and the black ice around Lin Ling's body finally cracked. Rumble. However, the third tribulation followed closely behind. In fact, the third and fourth tribulations struck at the same time. 4 tribulation sage lightning? The spirit state was completely silent. Looking at the history of the spirit state, Lin Ling was the only one who had 4 tribulations. The more sage tribulations he had, the more potential and strength Lin Ling had. Rumble. After the final 2 lightning tribulations struck, no one knew if Lin Ling would be unscathed. Instead, a dazzling light appeared in front of him. An endless pool of lightning wreaked havoc, causing the entire black ice world to crack. Moreover, shattered ice shot into the sky and then fell down like rain. Did he succeed? Someone said solemnly. This was the tribulation of 4 saints. How could an ordinary person cross this tribulation? At the same time, after the world of black ice collapsed, a figure slowly walked out. He was holding an ancient sword, and flames were burning on his body, forming billowing steam. This made him look extremely unreal, but people could clearly see that in this illusory scene, a pair of extremely sharp eyes appeared. This caused the hearts of the Mi and Xian sects to explode. Lin Ling had successfully broken through. Another half-saint had been born in the spirit province. Moreover, based on the saint's tribulation, it was obvious that this was no ordinary half-saint stage powerhouse. Xiang Anning, thank you for helping me break through. Now do you want to die, or do you want me to solve it for you? Finally, the sound of footsteps could be heard. Lin Ling walked out step by step. His saint's light was extremely dense. It actually caused Xiang Anning's legs to tremble and he couldn't straighten his back. Even if he was at the 5th stage of the half-saint stage and had 2 desolate physiques, he felt like he wasn't looking at a half-saint, but a real saint in front of Lin Ling's saint's light. He couldn't understand why Lin Ling, who was only at the 1st stage of the half-saint stage, could give him such pressure. How could he know that Lin Ling's 4 dantians had all entered the 1st stage of the half-saint stage? His boundary essence was terrifying. It wasn't weaker than the 4th stage of the half-saint stage. In fact, because of the fusion, it had already far surpassed the 4th stage of the half-saint stage. The victor hasn't been decided yet. Lin Ling, I'll let you see my peerless move. The move that injured the 10 heavenly lords and was praised by senior battling cicada of light. Roar! Suddenly, Xiang Anning roared at the sky. No one knew what he was chanting, but a mysterious symbol appeared on his forehead. His entire body also darkened. This made Sakra and the underworld god, who also had one of the 100 bloodlines, deeply feel the terrifying pressure. At this moment, a mysterious aura spread out from Xiang Anning's body. His cultivation level rose like a boat, reaching 70%. The black netherworld sea surged again, but it didn't engulf Lin Ling. Instead, it lingered in the sky and gradually formed a huge black hole. From the black hole, the aura of the underworld quietly spread out. That was the smell of death. That was the tomb of a saint. One had to know that saints didn't enter the ghost realm, the 6 paths of reincarnation, or the 9 serenities and 18 levels of hell because they were saints. However, when the black hole appeared, even saints trembled with fear. Martial arts of the underworld. Lin Ling raised his head and looked at the black hole indifferently. In his mind, he recalled a martial art that he had learned in the rainforest sacred land. The 6 paths of reincarnation. What Xiang Anning was using wasn't the 6 paths of reincarnation, but the underworld reincarnation. Heavens, that's the underworld reincarnation. Isn't that the underworld god's martial art? Where did Xiang Anning get such a martial art? He's going to become the underworld god and become the god of the gods era. I'm afraid that not more than 30% of the people in the semi-sage realm can block this move from the looks of it. The entire spirit state was shocked. Some experts with the strength of saints had also guessed what Xiang Anning was using. Then, they quickly looked at Lin Ling. If it was the previous Xiang Anning, Lin Ling might be able to defeat him, but the current Xiang Anning was a bit difficult. Unless Lin Ling was also hiding something. Fine, underworld and Buddha can't coexist. At this moment, Lin Ling's long hair was dancing wildly. His strength was also stimulated to the peak. After reaching the half-saint realm, he also wanted to test the power of the great solar calamity bow. I see that the people of the world are walking in the boundless dust. They don't know what's going on. They don't know what's going on. They don't know how long they can live in glory and splendor. The ancient Buddhist voice, like a heavenly dragon protecting the Dharma, quietly sounded in the spirit state. A golden light shone in all directions. In Lin Ling's hand, a 5-meter-long divine dragon bow descended. This, Lin Ling still has some tricks up his sleeve. Fuck, a 5-meter-long bow, and the entire bow is made of dragon bones. Isn't it too impressive? Lin Ling, as expected of the ultimate weapon of the Tantric Buddhism. Seeing the ferocious dragon bone and incomparably huge dragon bow, the entire spirit state was in an uproar. Even the saints of the Azure Dragon Hall had extremely serious expressions. They had always thought highly of Xiang Anning, but now, there was another name in the world in their hearts, and that was Lin Ling. I think this battle should be stopped, a saint said. Because both of them were the most outstanding geniuses of the spirit state, losing either one of them was something they didn't want to see. The battle has already reached its climax. I'm afraid it'll be very difficult. However, another saint sighed. At this point, it was likely that Lin Ling and Xiang Anning wouldn't withdraw so easily. That's right, only one person can be the #1 genius of the spirit state. It was even more impossible for Xianzong to keep Lin Ling, so they all agreed. As for the Tantric Buddhism, they wanted to stop this battle, but they also knew that it was impossible. Therefore, they all turned their gazes to the majestic dragon bow, and their hearts were filled with anticipation. At this moment, Lin Ling, who was in the sky, was undoubtedly extremely extraordinary. Chapter 31:16. 2 arrows shooting reincarnation. I have to admit that you, Lin Ling, are indeed impressive. You have all sorts of extraordinary techniques, many of which I have never seen before. However, do you think you can block the reincarnation of the god of the underworld with that bow? Xiang Anning looked coldly at Lin Ling. The techniques I have are beyond your understanding. Blocking the reincarnation of the underworld is an extremely easy task. Lin Ling said indifferently. Ha ha ha, you probably don't know what the bloodline of the god of the underworld is. Even Senior Guang Zhangchan praised my reincarnation endlessly. He once said that if he was young, he wouldn't be able to break the reincarnation of the underworld. There is only one person of the same age in this world, and that person is also an expert who defeated Senior Guangzhengchan. He is a god that you have to look up to. Now die. Xiang Anning shook his head and smiled. His reincarnation of the underworld was a true god's technique. Although he had only scratched the surface, it was not something that ordinary people could block. After speaking, he released the mark from the underworld. In the sky, reincarnation opened and began to rotate. Even the saints on the ground had serious expressions. This was a technique that could kill them. If they entered the underworld, they would not be able to become a saint. Rumble. A terrifying suction force enveloped Lin Ling's entire body as if the gods were punishing him. Meanwhile, the bow in Lin Ling's hand was silently drawn, and a dragon god appeared on the bowstring. However, the reincarnation of the underworld in the sky was not something that he could block. It continued to drag him into the underworld. Seeing this, the people of the Tantric sect all shouted. They saw Lin Ling's body slowly floating toward the reincarnation of the underworld. Danger lurked everywhere. First arrow, Heavenly Dragon's protection. Good karma increases by day. However, at this moment, Lin Ling finally released the arrow. The arrow turned into a dragon god and shot toward the reincarnation of the underworld. This is one of the 8 divine powers of the dragon tribe. Only then did the Xian sect cultivators see Lin Ling's technique clearly, and their expressions instantly became serious. They did not expect that the battle between the top geniuses of the spirit state was actually a battle of the gods. One was the god of the underworld, and the other was the dragon clan. Both of them were gods left behind in the era of gods. Their light shrouded these juniors, and they fought again in the era of gods. Now the battle between the two was no longer a clash of talent, cultivation realm, or ultimate martial Tao, but rather a clash of divine methods, to see who was stronger. Whoosh! The arrow shot into the netherworld reincarnation wheel, and the entire wheel of reincarnation stopped. Moreover, cracks appeared on it. This arrow was so terrifying. The reputation of the heavenly dragon protector was definitely not undeserved. Even Xiang Anning's expression changed greatly. However, the cracked samsara began to slowly move again. Although it was slow, it was clear that the arrow hadn't pierced through it. Haha, just a little bit more, just a little bit more, one more arrow. Why didn't he come? I think you can only fire one arrow. It's my turn now. Seeing this, Xiang Anning could not help but laugh loudly. His laughter was very excited. He had blocked Lin Ling's arrow. My apologies. I just happened to be able to fire a second arrow. With the Emperor's help, Bodhi will not retreat. However, just as he laughed, Lin Ling's great sun calamity bow was drawn again, and a new arrow descended. This arrow was not from the dragon god, but the true inheritance of the dark sword. What? Xiang Anning never expected that Lin Ling would still have another arrow. The 6 mystical abilities of the dragon tribe could only be cultivated by the dragon god. Thus, Xiang Anning guessed that Lin Ling could barely cultivate one arrow, and that would be enough to sweep through the crowd. However, who knew that Lin Ling was not a member of the dragon tribe, but he could draw a second arrow, and this second arrow undoubtedly tipped the scales. After all, he had only scratched the surface of the underworld god's techniques, and Lin Ling's dragon tribe techniques were much more powerful than his. Whoosh! The second arrow shot into the sky. Kaboom! The netherworld reincarnation wheel, which was originally slowly rotating, was finally completely shattered by the second arrow. Xiang Anning's expression changed drastically, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. However, at this moment, an arrow shot down from the sky like a heavenly dragon, majestically shooting towards him. This made him open his mouth wide, and his face was filled with anxiety. I'll destroy your past, present, and future. Lin Ling's voice was like a deity's as it floated in his ears. Impossible, how can this be? Xiang Anning kept shaking his head. He had traveled the 9 states and fought against the geniuses of the 9 states, so he was full of confidence and thought that no one in the spirit state could stop him. However, now, a monster that was not weaker than the geniuses of the 9 states had been born here. Most importantly, this person was a nobody. Therefore, he could not figure it out and died with a grievance. Because I am the only person who defeated Guangzhengchan, the ghost genius Li Xiaoyao. At this moment, a faint voice suddenly appeared in Xiang Anning's ears, causing his pupils to constrict. Ghost geniuses should not be humiliated. He remembered this sentence. In fact, at this critical moment, he even remembered what the Lord of 10 Directions had said to him. The only battle that the Lord of 10 Directions Master, Guang Zhenchan, had lost was to the ghost genius Li Xiaoyao. "You are!" Xiang Anning roared, but it was too late. The arrow pierced through him, causing him to gradually turn into ashes as if he was illuminated by the sun. His past, present, and future were all killed. This also caused the spirit state to be thunderstruck. Lin Ling, 2 arrows shot the cycle of reincarnation. The ultimate weapon of the tantric sect was indeed terrifying. This also meant that the number 1 genius of the spirit state had changed hands. It was Lin Ling from the tantric sect. Everyone thought back to the final battle. They thought back to the beginning of the battle and the final battle. All of this felt extremely unreal. Of course, in the end, they seemed to see a dazzling light that illuminated the spirit province. That light was Lin Ling. In the end, they looked at the sky with dazed eyes. Other than shock and horror, there was nothing else in their eyes. Using battle to nurture battle. This guy is the craziest person I've ever seen. The tantric sect master also muttered to himself. It was obvious that he was also scared out of his wits. It had to be known that it was not rare for a martial artist to make a breakthrough in the midst of a battle. Of course, a continuous breakthrough like Lin Ling was one of a kind. But the most frightening thing was that he had just made a breakthrough but was already familiar with his strength and could use any means to counter it. This was truly rare. "Lin Ling, you killed Xiang Anning. I'm going to kill you." In the Xian sect, after a brief moment of absent-mindedness, everyone's eyes turned red. They were originally confident of victory, but it was all destroyed by Lin Ling. Now, even the number 1 genius was dead. This made them hate Lin Ling to the core. "You bunch of ants? You're not worthy." Lin Ling looked at the Xian sect people indifferently. The disdain in his eyes was not concealed at all. Such words and such an expression were undoubtedly like adding oil to a fire. He killed the number 1 genius of the Xian sect and did not feel guilty at all. Instead, he said that they were not worthy? At this moment, even the sage who was unfazed by the collapse of the sky was completely enraged. "He's Lin Ling." However, at this moment, a voice suddenly sounded in the sky. A sage descended from the sky. "Master Rong. He's the Lin Ling you've been looking for." Chapter 31:17. The saints of the heavenly court had arrived. This sudden change caused the entire spirit province to become silent. "Who is this person? He's so strong." The master of Tantra and the 4 heavenly kings frowned. Although they were all saints, they could clearly sense that this saint was even more extraordinary. Lin Ling also looked at the sky. Especially after seeing Long Yang. He knew that the person was coming for him. "You're from the heavenly court?" Then, Lin Ling said indifferently, vaguely guessing something. "You're right. I'm the brocade dust saint of the heavenly court." The old man lowered his head and looked down at Lin Ling as he spoke unhurriedly. The gaze with which he looked at Lin Ling faintly carried a hint of curiosity. "You're Lin Ling, right? Come back with me. The martial god wants to see you." The old man wasn't sure if Lin Ling was the person he was looking for, but he didn't let him go. "If you don't agree, I'll kill you on the spot." His next words caused the hearts of everyone in spirit state to tremble. It turned out that this saint from the heavenly court was actually here to kill Lin Ling. At this moment, the people of Tantric Buddhism were all shocked, as if they were facing a great enemy. Now that Lin Ling had become the number 1 person in Tantric Buddhism, they could not let Lin Ling die at the hands of the sage. As for the Tantric sages and the 4 heavenly kings, they had long known that the newcomers were not kind, so they were all prepared to fight to the death. However, the latter's strength was clearly stronger than theirs. Furthermore, he was from the heavenly court, so they did not know if they could defeat him. Capture Lin Ling? If he refused, he would be killed on the spot. Ha ha ha, great. On the other hand, on Xianzong's side, Lord Xianzong and the 4 heavenly kings all laughed loudly. Their excitement was even greater than when they broke through. It turned out that they were not helpers, but enemies. This Lin Ling is so unlucky. He actually offended someone from the heavenly court, and a saint at that. "Men, bring a table and chairs over. Bring some good wine. Let's enjoy the show." Lord Xianzong had been waiting for Lin Ling to die, so naturally, he was satisfied. "Senior saint of the heavenly court, if you need any help, Sir Xianzong. We will capture Lin Ling for you." The four heavens and the heavenly court's faces. After all, the heavenly court of the heavens, saint of the heavenly court, heavenly kings, dragon. Note. Even the Tsong Dragon Hall couldn't stand it anymore. One of the saints shouted angrily. What are you all doing? Lin Ling is from the spirit state and he might even become the realm monarch in the future. The Tsong Dragon Hall was left behind by the gods. If it was before, they wouldn't have stood up for Lin Ling. But now, Lin Ling was the most promising candidate to become the next realm monarch. According to the rules of the gods, they had to protect Lin Ling. What does it have to do with us? The one who wants to kill Lin Ling is the saint of the heavenly court. If the Azure Dragon Hall is not convinced, you can go and provoke them. However, Lord Xianzong had an indifferent expression on his face. Moreover, he'd unknowingly picked up a bunch of grapes and was eating as he spoke. His words caused those saints to tremble with rage. Then, all the saints looked at the saint in the sky. Senior, there must be some misunderstanding. I don't care about that. As long as his name is Lin Ling, I must take him away. If your spirit state wants to stop me, then you must consider whether or not you can withstand the wrath of the heavenly court. The old man said indifferently. A golden incense burner appeared in his hand. Green smoke drifted out from the incense burner. It was like an orchid, like a musk deer, like a cloud, like a crane. The incense burner was in the shape of a toad. There were 2 blue dragons carved on the side. It looked extremely extraordinary. Lin Ling's eyes instantly lit up. He recognized the incense burner. On the other hand, the Azure Dragon Hall saints felt a strong pressure from the incense burner. They knew that the heavenly court had to take Lin Ling away today. Junior Lin Ling, you're very bold. You actually dare to provoke the heavenly court time and time again. In fact, I'm very curious about your actions. Can you tell me why you're doing this? The old man finally looked at Lin Ling. His tone was full of dignity. Lin Ling, hurry up and answer. The heavenly court saint is asking you a question. Before Lin Ling could speak, Lord Xianzong and the 4 heavenly kings spoke one after another. They reprimanded him in the tone of a senior. He's young but he's so impudent. A person like this won't amount to anything in the future. That's right. I think he'll only amount to this for the rest of his life. Tell us why you're so cruel and heartless. Otherwise, don't blame the spirit state for putting righteousness before family. Once these words were spoken, the saints of the Azure Dragon Hall cursed in their hearts. The entire spirit state was the same. However, Lin Ling didn't care about what Lord Xianzong said. He smiled calmly. Haha, I knew the heavenly court would be very curious. However, do you really want to know the answer? Speak. The old saint nodded immediately. He was indeed curious about Lin Ling. First, with Lin Ling's strength, why did he provoke the heavenly court time and time again and kill the martial god's disciples? Second, with Lin Ling's strength, why was he able to succeed time and time again? Even a 5th stage half-saint had died at Lin Ling's hands. All of this was a mystery. Because I was under someone's orders. Lin Ling stopped smiling and said calmly. As soon as he finished speaking, the entire spirit province fell silent. The old saint frowned. Under someone's orders? He pondered for a moment. Everything seemed to make sense. The heavenly court was spread throughout the 9 states and was the most powerful force in the post-God era. Ordinary people wouldn't dare to provoke them. Lin Ling was just one person. Unless he was stupid, he wouldn't do something like this. This meant that Lin Ling did indeed have someone backing him up. There should be more than one person behind you, right? The old saint asked again. Since Lin Ling dared to provoke the heavenly court, there might be a powerful force behind him. Yes, we're an alliance. Lin Ling nodded lightly. The old saint's eyes finally lit up. What alliance? Even Xing Xiun and the others were shocked. Lin Ling had a powerful alliance behind him? Although this news was shocking, it seemed to make sense when they thought about Lin Ling's speed of growth. Let's take a look at this sword first. Old man, do you think I can take this sword with my strength? Lin Ling didn't explain anything. He waved his right hand and the true inheritance dark sword appeared. This made the old saint even more convinced. The true inheritance dark sword was his master's sword. Without the corresponding divine language, he would die if he even got close to the sword, let alone control it. Therefore, the old saint was even more convinced of Lin Ling's alliance. What alliance? Also, I want to take this sword back with me. The old saint's breathing quickened. If he could find out about the alliance behind Lin Ling and take the true inheritance dark sword back, it would definitely be a great achievement. Originally, he wanted to inform martial god Qilin immediately and ask the Heavenly Court's elites to come. However, he didn't think so anymore. He wanted to take such a great achievement for himself. Hurry up and tell me who's behind you. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.